going to call the 3 o'clock Tuesday, June 6th workshop meeting to order. At this time, I'm going to ask everybody to please rise for a moment of silence, pledge allegiance, and the national anthem. Moment of silence. Thank you. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We'll go to roll call.
Will Furry present.
Christy Chong present.
Sally Hunt.
Colin Conklin present.
Cheryl Massaro.
Kathy Middlestadt.
We're going to go down. Don't have any proclamations. Okay, go with the legislative update, please.
Board members, you should see at your seats a copy of the legislative report card 2023 from FSBA, just to share with you kind of some of the results. Basically everything that was on their advocacy list and their legislative list, our report card came out pretty well, with the exception of a few. If you would like, we can go over this piece by piece, or I can leave it with you to review, and we can discuss at the next workshop. I know we're going to have the Sarah brothers come and give us a legislative review and update. So it's whatever the pleasure of the board.
Anybody?
I'd say we can just review it on our own and then reconvene.
Yeah, I don't think you need me to read it to you.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Go down with spotlight, approval of minutes, adoption of agenda. Any changes or corrections to the agenda?
I have a few, Board Chair, if I may.
Yep.
I'd like to pull 1603 and have our CFO during her update on our financials review some information for the board. I'd like to pull 1801, that was an FTC placeholder, that will come back to you in July. And I'd like to move up 1701, time certain, our next topic for discussion, because we do have members of the Flagler County Sheriff join us today for that conversation.
What time?
Our next topic.
Okay. All right. So we're going to move that above public comment, correct?
No,
Public
701.
comment first.
Can they go in front of public comment?
No.
Or time certain?
All
So
right,
your
so-
first topic for discussion.
Got it. Okay. All right. So we have those changes. We're going down now to public comment. Do we have public comment?
At this time, we do not have public comment.
Somebody
No, we
signing
do.
up now.
Ah, I apologize. She just hasn't hit send.
Just a moment, thank you.
No
Okay.
worries, she has not hit send yet.
All right, it's coming. Okay, come on up. Sorry for the delay. That's okay.
Please.
Yeah, right up here to see.
Thank you. My name is Angela Smith from Flagler Beach.
Welcome.
School board rooms across the United States have become the most volatile place in recent years, led by extremists. The political environment has penetrated the delicate environment of the classroom. Teachers across the nation have known of the lack of respect for the teaching profession in the state of Florida for decades. The book ban is led by extremists who have limited the options students have to read books under the care of education professionals. Students naturally look to the internet for answers. Again, extremists control much of the social media our students consume. Students are told they are lazy and are shown that they are not to be trusted with books under the guidance of education professionals to help them meaningfully engage with the world around them. They are not just lazy, they are shell-shocked. We are living in the technological revolution. In order to prepare our students with 21st century skills, they must be respected and taught to use critical thinking skills to manage the challenges of the world around them. We must spend energy preparing students with problem-solving skills and trust them with the nation's future decisions. Our students will reflect upon this time in history and be the decision makers of the future. It is my responsibility as an educator to be prepared, to prepare them for the world. The world is watching, and it will remember how our nation took away the privilege of our students to be able to meaningfully engage with the world around them by the politicians who side with extremists. Thank you for my time.
Thank you, thank you. All right, are we getting another one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, finish up. You want to come up?
Yes.
Come on up.
I think you're going to be talking about the, first, thank you. I think you're going to be talking about the Guardian program, which would involve arming civilians. I know the police officers back there, or the sheriff's office, know what I'll be wanting to talk about. I don't know what you'd be arming these civilians with, whether you would arm them with a rifle, a semi-automatic rifle, or you would arm them with a .40 caliber Glock, or something along those lines. I just want to mention, for those who have handled weapons, for those who have been in the military as I have been, one thing I know, I was not in combat, but I still was handy with a rifle and a pistol. And one thing I know is that it's hard. It takes a lot of training to fire a weapon and hit anybody, especially in a moment of stress. When your adrenaline's high, everybody's adrenaline's high, people are maybe yelling, screaming, running through the halls. For a civilian, I don't care if you train that civilian for a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year, that person is not going to be able to really safely make a decision as to whether to open fire or not open fire. It's a difficult things that deputies go through day after day, week after week, year after year, to be trained to not make rash decisions. But how do you take a civilian from a athletic department or an English teacher, put a Glock in their hands and tell them, go take on that shooter, our kids are running and all that? Never. By the way, I think the deputies will tell you that in a stressful situation, even the deputies don't hit their targets they hit their targets less than half the time. In fact, some studies show that police officers in a stress situation, a shootout, hit their target only 30% of the time. 30%. That means if you fire 15 rounds out of a Glock, most of those rounds go straight. Now, if you're in a school and you have walls, and the walls are sometimes ceramic, maybe all of them ceramic, whatever they are, you got rounds bouncing all over the place. I can't imagine anybody controlling that except an armed deputy. So what I'm proposing is that no, don't arm English teachers, don't arm gym teachers because they're maybe big or something. There's one thing to be big, it's another thing to handle a firearm in a stress situation in a closed environment with people screaming at you. That's a job for trained deputies. So if you're going to protect these schools, you should think seriously about putting trained deputies on the job, not somebody who may take their training seriously, somebody who may look good with a gun, but when they start firing, it's really hard to hit anything with them. I know that. I fire 45s, I fire M4s, M15s, M16s. It's hard to hit anything, even when they're still. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the chance.
Anybody else?
That's everyone.
We have public comment for the social studies, but that would be on our evening meeting. So we're going to go on now, back up, I'm going to change this and put 1701 to speak of the times are certain. 1701, resolution adopting guardian program. Mr. Willihan and guests, if you'd like to.
Good afternoon, Chair, School Board Member, Superintendent Middlestat. Before you is the resolution of a School Board of Flagler County regarding school safety. This resolution itself would be the first opportunity for you as a board to adopt the Guardian program here for Flagler schools. You know, as the resolution states, the safety of all children is the highest priority of the school board. And whereas, and we're going to, go through this on June 20th. But with if you as a board decide to take action on this resolution, that night on June 20th, it will give the Flagler County Sheriff's Office the opportunity to apply with the Florida Department of Education for the RFP Guardian Grant. So I'm here just to answer any questions. As Chief Williams, who is the Chief over Youth Services, and Commander Naraki is with us here as well.
Do we have questions? Now's the time.
And before anything, I just want to be mindful of anything that was discussed in executive session or anything that that we have had conversations about in executive session. Be mindful of that, please.
Mr. Ferry, you have questions?
So if we did this, when would be the earliest that we would be able to start training?
Right, so part of this is the Sheriff's Office does not actually apply for the grant until the board takes action. But with the resolution before you, is directing the superintendent and district staff to move forward with the Guardian program, adopt policies, change policies, create a schedule with the Sheriff's Office, and the Sheriff's Office can work with the Department of Education on that funding piece. But to answer your question, the schedule piece will be most likely not at the start of the school year, but we'll work together with the Sheriff's Office. It would probably be later where training would probably start in June of 2024.
Ms. Conklin.
So just a quick question. I know we talked in previous workshops, multiple workshops, different details of this. I'm just a little concerned about adopting a resolution like this without all of the details. And I understand there's items that were discussed in executive session. I'm not even really talking about that. I'm talking about if we adopt the resolution without knowing the specifics, that makes me a little uncomfortable.
Right. So to answer your question, Dr. Conklin, I have worked closely with the Sheriff's Office. I'm continuing to work with Suwannee County. That model is something that we see that you as a board would like to see possibly pursued here in this district. So working with their district safety specialist, working with their superintendent, their assistant superintendent, and continuing to possibly bring that model to this district. So looking at their policies, looking at their procedures, looking at the maps, how they create their application process would all be very similar to Suwannee County.
So let me ask it in a different way. If we were to adopt this resolution, does that bind us to a future grant application that we would then not have input in? So in other words, I'm concerned about adopting a resolution and then a month, 2 months later, we get the finite details and it's not something that we're in agreement with.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. And I don't know if Superintendent Middlestad, you can speak on that, or Ms. Gavin.
Like, would the application come back before us?
The
before-
application of the grant by the sheriff's
That's
office, completely separate entity.
No, I understand that, but the details that they are going to put in the grant directly impacts our organization.
And I
So
believe-
will it ever, basically, will those details come back to us for us to say whether or not we're comfortable with that?
Right.
Prior to the application.
Yeah, so what the Sheriff's Office has presented in previous board meetings, the application process, all the training aspects that they are going to go through, and go above what's required by state statute, working on procedures on how that looks for the district. That's kind of the stuff that we have actually already been continuing to work on.
And I certainly wouldn't submit anything without showing the school board.
Sure, of
and the
course.
School district first, just to make sure that.
So it would come
You guys are
back
comfortable
then
with the
for the
information
board to
provided.
have input
Yeah.
in.
Okay.
We would have to bring policy back to you because we would have to change, but we would have to revise policy as well. And come policy would come procedures.
Good. Any other questions? No?
So on the night of the 20th, if you have any further questions from here till June 20th, please let me know, and I will continue to work on this. And if there's any edits that need to be made on this, as you can see, it's in draft form, and we'll do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, getting back in order here. We're going to start at resources and supports with financial reports.
Good afternoon, Chair Zero, board members, and Superintendent Middlestad. I'm here to answer questions that you may have on items 7.01 through 7.09. We're going to start on 7.01 with the charter school financials.
Any questions, any concerns?
No, just pointing out again, $1.7 million in payments of tax dollars going to a private entity for a building that is not owned by taxpayers. Love Imagine, just don't like the model.
All right, seeing none and hearing none, we'll go to 7.02, purchase orders over 10,000.
I do want to note just real quick for transparency, the first page has PO for Milliman shown twice. This is a actuary firm that we use. It is not paid. It was not paid twice. It was put in the wrong PO, so we had to cancel it and put it in the right PO group. And unfortunately, the way the report pulls, it pulls them all.
Any questions?
What is game time? A canopy?
Game time, yeah. That's the canopy with Kansas.
Okay.
I'm going to ask Mr. Freeman, can you come speak to about the canopy at the high school?
Afternoon,
Good
Board,
afternoon.
Chair, Superintendent. So this past year, we have had many of our canopies throughout the district on the board docs. This is just one of them. This is one of the tail end ones. We've done support canopies for buses and students at all the way from Belterre, Indian Trails. There's one that's ongoing at Buddy Taylor right now. This is one that we had also identified that we needed to do. And this is really in anticipation of this next year when we anticipate more students growing, and we're looking at additional covered area for outside eating.
Yeah, the name just threw me off.
Ah,
Yeah, yeah.
game time.
Any questions? The only question I had was, and it wasn't really a question, was pages 11 through 19 is the new sensory equipment at ESE. Can you kind of just explain? That's a lot of money, so I just want to know what that entails. I mean,
I don't know if Kim
can
is.
do that. We've got.
I'm gonna ask Ms. Moore to come up. I know she was involved. We did allocate about $50,000 per school in the ESSER grants for this, and this is the final product
finally
coming to
come through.
fruition. Yes.
Yeah, and it seems odd speaking about this with Ms. Tammy York in the room, because she really was able to really spearhead this, to bring this to life. This is identifying areas in each of our schools that are what we're calling a sensory room or de-escalation room. And so Ms. York, as well as Joey DePuma out of our technology department, has worked with each of our schools in order to identify that space and what items are needed in that space. And so that's what you see before you right now.
Okay, good. That's all. I think that's good for the general public to know. All right, anything else? Hearing none, we'll go down to 7.03, vendor payments. Any questions or concerns? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to 7.04, request board approval of deletion of inventory. Any questions, issues?
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, can I just go back real quick?
Vendor
to
payments?
Vendor payments.
Yep.
So I'm just curious, Patty, on page 2, I think it is, it's for an activity fund. There are several payments made to Indian Trails Middle School under an activity fund. And if you don't know right now, I wouldn't suspect you would. I'm sorry, I meant to give this to you beforehand. Just what they're for. I think the larger one may be for the future problem solvers.
I think most of them are for future problem solvers. What the activity fund is if there's, just for clarification, if there is a cost paid out of the internal account that the district really needs to reimburse that for, sometimes when travel was being made, it's such a time-sensitive thing that they have to get the rooms booked, registration done, so sometimes it's paid out of their internal account and then reimbursed. This happens a lot with the future problem solvers every year.
Okay. I saw that with the Old Kings too, so that's why I thought it was a future problem solver.
I mean, the check number.
Check number is, it's a ACH 401.
And then the only other one, I was kind of curious about Cambridge University, how many students we have participating in that. Again, I don't expect you to get that.
ACE program?
Yeah.
ACE program?
Yeah.
I'll get that to you.
Because it looked like all those payments went through. Looks pretty expensive.
Mm-hmm. And I'll follow up on that activity account too.
Yeah, thank you.
Just for clarification, I don't want to guess right now.
And again, I apologize not getting that
No
to you
problem.
beforehand.
All right.
I'll send that out to all the board members.
That's good. So we're back to 704, deletion of inventory. Anybody, anything? Hearing that, the only thing I'm glad to see, we're finally getting rid of a lot of old computers. They need to go. They're very old. Okay, 7.05, request board approval for finance budget amendments. Anybody? It's relatively clear. All right, hearing none, we're going past that. 7.06, request board approval of professional development travel. Any questions or concerns? Okay, I had nothing there. 7.07, board approval for district financial statements.
These are the financials for the month of April. Are there any questions directly on this document?
The same concern that I always have is those Medicare payments just are so lagging. It never
So they're done,
balances.
yeah, so we did just receive, we have 4 quarters outstanding for the admin claiming, which is the lack that you're seeing there, that gap, totaling, I think, a little over 400,000. We did just receive 2 quarters, I believe, in May, so you will see that in the next month's
Okay.
financials. And then we are expecting the final 2 to come in soon. We've been in contact with them. There's a discrepancy on one of them. We try to contact them and just see and get it worked out, but they should be fully received, and if not, it would be booked as a revenue, but I expect them by the end of this month.
Okay, good.
And it does take quite a while to get.
Yeah, it does.
Patty, for transportation, fleet service, are we over budget? Because it's April and we're at 0 already.
Fleet 0005
Yeah.
on page
003 and 005
transportation.
on, I'm sorry, yeah, page 3, I think it was.
We have
Page 4.
funds of page 4.
Yeah, page 4.
Oh, at the top.
Yeah, you see where I'm talking
So
about?
so this is the capital fund. So when we buy equipment for the departments, we transfer just the exact amount of funds that are needed.
Okay.
So when the PO's done, then it's all zeroed out.
So there shouldn't be any
No.
additional expenditures?
No.
Okay, that makes sense.
Any other questions on the financials? Okay, as Superintendent Middlestat mentioned, I do want to just give the board an update on where we are with the FYO program. We also refer to this as a strings program. If you hear me say that, this it's one and the same. The presentation was done last month by Ms. Tristram, and since then there were questions that came out of that presentation, things that we were looking into as a school district. As we were looking to answer some of these questions for the board, we did realize that the bank account that is being used by FYO is an account of the school district in our EIN name. So I'm going to just go through the process of everything that we determined, Carrie and myself, just to get the timeline kind of set so y'all can understand, and then we'll just go from there if there's questions. So we do know this account was opened in 2005 under the then superintendent, Bill Del Brugge. This was an account set up to for the district to take on this program, kind of fund the program, and Ms. Tristram was the person who oversaw the program and was tasked with growing this program for our schools. The original account was in Cypress, Coquina. It was opened up in the name of Friends of the Youth Orchestra. That bank has since merged. It's now PNC, and at some point in time, I don't know when, but at some point the name on the account was flipped to Flagler County School District. So the checks still have Friends of the Youth Orchestra. So the account name on the bank is now correct, and that it is our bank account that was opened. We contacted, when we found this out, Carrie and I contacted Ms. Tristram, because we needed to get oversight of this account. We didn't have any of the activity, anything. So we needed to take ownership of that as well as the bank account, since it's our, bank account. So we worked with Ms. Tristram to get QuickBooks. It was on just her desktop. We got QuickBooks on a web base, so we can now go pull reports. Carrie and I went to try to close the account yesterday, and there is some outstanding transactions, so we weren't able to close it, but we asked them to just give us a check for the net. So we took the check. Carrie and I went to Ameris, opened a separate account that now says Flagler County School District internal account, Flagler Youth Orchestra, because those are the funds for that program. So that account is now separate. Carrie and I right now are the only signers on that account. If there was any other signers added, it would probably be somebody else in our finance department or someone who was tasked with overseeing the program, such as if it fell under teaching and learning, it would be Jeff Reeves. So that's something we're still working out, but right now it's just us. And we have requested a debit card as well, which is very similar. That's the same way we do all of our internal ones for the schools. So at this point, we also had contacted our auditors. As far as I've been here since 2011, this has not been audited as an internal account. I don't know about previous to that. I can only speak since I've been here. So we contacted our auditors just to try to explain, like, this is what happened. What do you recommend? So what they had recommended is the current year would fall under the internal accounts audit that we do every year. So that would be done in the summer. and then 3 years of audits for the previous 3 years prior to this year. So that is what we have done. We asked them to do a 100% transactional audit just to make sure that everything is accounted for, that, you know, so we all have just a good feeling that, you know, this was all done properly, this was all done right. So they're in the, have started that. We have sent them the files. We have worked with Ms. Tristram to get some of the detail. A lot of it was uploaded in QuickBooks, so we're kind of working through that to make sure that we have support for all the transactions. So they have an audit team that has started. It will take a few weeks. They are hoping to be done by the end of June. However, once they saw how many transactions there were, it might take another week or two. But they have a team that they put together that can be devoted full-time to this. So that is where we are now. That brings us up to today. Like I said, we have the new account, we have control of it, and we do have all the records, or access to the records.
Questions?
Does anybody feel like we need a longer audit than 3 years?
I think we're doing 4, right?
3 plus this.
It'll be 3 plus this year, 4.
4, so it's 4.
Yeah, it's 4 years.
I just wanted to share with the rest of the board. I did have a conversation with Bill Del Brugge, the previous superintendent, because I knew this was an internal account, and yes, Tom Tant, who was the CFO at the time, set up the account with him and Cheryl as a special project to support basically what I've been saying in the board meetings. We asked them to do this. That's exactly what we did. We asked them to do this. The district set up that account. His understanding was the account was audited annually, that there were books basically that were shared with the finance department. So I think those are all things that we need to discover and find out what happened. Was it a change in superintendent, a change in staff? How did it fall through the cracks? Because obviously it fell through the cracks. But this is on us. This is our issue. We, basically, we let this somehow, some way, through the years, this slipped through the cracks. So I think now it sounds like you're trying to put all the parameters in place, so everything is done exactly that needs to be done, just like all the other internal accounts.
Correct. We have specific processes for our internal accounts. So since this wasn't audited, many of those processes probably aren't in place. We did, provide Cheryl with our handbook that we use, but I mean, we can't fix.
That's just now.
Right. We can't fix that. So part of what the auditors are looking at in this 100% transactional audit that they're doing is, timely deposits. Is there support for the deposits, for the expenses, any related party transactions, kind of thing, anything they would look at in a normal audit. So they have been given some background information so they can understand the program, because they're going to have to know whether it's a valid expense or things like that. So it's going to be treated just like an internal account audit would be. The only difference is this is going to be a full-blown audit, whereas a normal audit you would only have like a sample of 25 done for all your expenditures, or a sample of 20 of all your deposits. So this is going to be much more detailed, just to try to give us a good feeling of where we are with the process, what is it that we have to change, what kind of procedures need to be put in place.
And Bill did say, if we are going to have this on a future workshop, that he's happy to attend by speaker to answer any questions if anybody needs that or wants that.
I know we've talked about this on the phone, but and we'll be auditing everything, but just want to make sure that any sponsorships, donations, all those things also are accounted for.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to say is I asked a lot of very direct questions in the last workshop about this, and I received a lot of misleading answers, and I'm not very happy about that, because I asked specifically about this account. What type of account is this? And I was told it was a booster account. Turns out it's not a booster account. Secondly, I asked, where's the accountability, the oversight of this account? I was told it was audited. Turns out it hasn't been audited ever, when our policy is to audit this every year, and has never been looked at. And thirdly, I asked Ms. Rastam, how do you get access to this account? And she said the schools. But as I've come to learn is that she was the only signer on this account.
No, Bill Delbrugge was the signer on it.
But Bill Delbrugge is no longer doesn't work here anymore.
No, correct.
Yeah,
I don't think
and
anybody knew.
But then Cheryl Tristam does not work for Flagler Schools, and she is a signer on this account. That is a problem. And who else? I mean, who did this? Has been going on for a long time. So I mean, Superintendent, did you know about this account?
Not in this regard.
I don't think anybody knew about it.
That's why you're finding out now, the
Right.
disclosure as you pull things apart
we're
are,
finding out.
wow, when this person left, this did not continue forward in the path it should have. So the team is doing due diligence to go back and make sure that the oversight is captured correctly going forward.
But is there any instance where you would approve to have a non-employee of Flagler Schools be a signer on one of our internal accounts?
That's not our practice, sir. You're going back in time to something that was set up previous to the people sitting here at this table. They're gonna do their due diligence to get it back in the shell it needs to be going forward for the strings program to continue to exist.
Well, very well, but it just is perplexing to think that for 15 years, no one's thought to ask to see this account. And I asked for those 3 years of financials, and that's what sparked this whole thing. And so I want to get some clarity here today so that I can, because we're making decisions based on the information. When I ask a question, I want to feel as if that I can count on the information that I'm getting so that I can make a decision that's going to affect a lot of people. And in this case, had I not asked for that, this would have just been kicked right down probably. Because here's the problem. The program itself is a wonderful program, right? It serves 300 kids, so no one's going to deny that, right? But we have a duty to have oversight over this and show accountability. So for the sake of the public, I think we need to share what we know already. Ms. Wormack, the historical data that was provided by Cheryl Tristan, how far back did that go? Did that QuickBooks go all the way back to the inception of the account?
I don't know how many years. It did not go back to the full program, though. I don't know how she was doing it before she transitioned to QuickBooks, but it went back at least, I think, until 2009.
So from what I understand and what I know is that, and this is according to the superintendent of Delbrugge, is that when the account was set up by Tom Tan, that it was annually she submitted for an internal audit, that those numbers were shared. I just assumed there was never an internal audit exception because there was no mention of any issues in an audit. I knew it was an internal account, and I also thought it was set up as a booster, just like many of our other programs, like if football has a fundraising arm.
But those are never internal accounts. Those are always external and have separate reporting requirements.
Right, which is why I had said those are separated out because they're booster. So I didn't think there was anything, that there was an issue. So when you brought that up and asked for the internal audits, I think staff was surprised to find, am I wrong? I mean, to find out that it was a district account.
Yes, that was, nobody that works here right now, including our board attorney, knew that account was in our name. Karen and I, when we get the checks, when the check is written, because we pay like $70,000 in the budget, and then the shortfall goes on the strings. When that check is written to us, it's written, like I said, in the name of the Friends of the Youth Orchestra. So we were under the assumption it was a separate entity. And this is all.
So I think in Cheryl's position, she thinks she was doing exactly the right thing because we asked her to start this program, right? We charged her with doing that. So she always felt like it's your account, it's your program. I'm just a contracted employee to basically fulfill the requirements of what you're asking me to do. So I think if somebody dropped the ball here, it was us. It was the school district.
Well, what I find odd is that, and again, this is why I question the original structure of this arrangement with them. You know, I understand the fact that the 1099 and we're 1099ing them, right? But the Friends of the Youth Orchestra, there's actually two entities. There's the Youth Orchestra, it appears, and there's the Friends of the Youth Orchestra. And it appears that all the donations, all the checks, the revenues that came in, all were going to the Youth Orchestra or the Friends of the Youth Orchestra. These checks were written to this name, right? But they were being deposited in a Flagler Schools account.
Right.
And the checks say Flagler Youth Orchestra, but has our account number on the bottom.
Yeah.
And so that's a problem because they are separate. It's very clear. We have a memorandum of understanding with Cheryl Tristram signed several years in a row, and she's signing as the person of the youth orchestra. So the fact that they should be using their own account or have their own entity, whether it's a 501c3 or it's a corporation, because if they're not, it to me, what this looks like is that they are just basically a sole proprietor raising money, but that's being deposited into Flagler School's bank account.
Well, it's not like that at all. It's just like when we have future problem solvers and people donate money. They donate money and write a check out to the future problem solvers. They don't write a check out to the Flagler Schools. They used our EIN number. That's what they used to open their account. Tom Tan, our CFO, opened the account for them.
Right.
The name of the account was Flagler Youth Orchestra. They were operating with the Friends of the Flagler Youth Orchestra as a booster. If you ask Cheryl, that's how she views it.
And I don't know of any bank that allows that. That's probably why that changed. If you have an account number, you can't have a different name on your on your checks.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, we do.
Absolutely.
I ran the youth center for very many years.
And it had
under the
Flagler
same kind-
Youth Center.
All checks are made at the Flagler County Youth Center.
No, but I'm talking about the checks that they write. Out of the bank account, there's checks that
Yeah,
they
I have
write
checks.
say.
They came out of the school, but.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So
Your
that's
checks that were written from Flagler
Right.
Youth Center were Flagler Youth Center checks.
No, they actually came from the district.
But we need to
Because I
have,
was an internal accountant.
and where were the bank statements mailed to?
It was Cheryl's personal home address.
Okay, so in what world does
Cheryl
somebody
Tristram.
receive
No, I know.
bank statements of a business or a school at their home
Right.
address? I mean, this just does not sound good to me. Who were the signers on this account?
So when we were at the bank yesterday, can you explain how like the bank signers, they're the only ones who can get access to the bank, right?
Yeah, so-
Carrie has a lot of background in banking, so let me just have her explain this piece.
So I called when you requested us to find out more information. They will not tell anyone who the signers are unless you are a signer on the bank. So I was not able to get that information. However, when we went to the bank yesterday and we had Cheryl with us and she was the original signer,
Then they
with
were
Patty and
able
I there,
to.
they were able to disclose that information to us.
So I had asked them who the signers were, and the signers were the same signers from the beginning, which is Bill Delbrue, Cheryl Tristram, and Pierre Tristram.
Pierre Tristram? Why would he be on there?
I have no idea.
Well, back then, Pierre was an editor with the News Journal. He was hurt. They were doing it together. So I don't recall, but that would be a question for maybe to ask Bill Delbrue. But I think both of them were basically supporters of bringing in the Youth Strings program for students in Flagler County. So they were both intimately involved. I'd be very, very surprised and shocked when we do the audit to find one signature of Pierre's on any check.
Well, that's interesting. was there ever any checks out of that count paid to her husband's business, Flagler Live?
Yes.
That came later.
There were?
Yes. There was, and just looking briefly through it while we were working on this for the auditors, there are checks for advertisement on the website, I guess. It's all digital, like 2, 3, 4 a year, maybe?
Let's just take note too that she is the treasurer of Flagler Live, writing checks out of this account to Flagler Live.
I mean, is that, Attorney Gabb, would that be considered some sort of conflict of interest of writing a check to a company that you're a treasurer of?
It's not a best practice, let me say it that way.
I'd say by the least.
Isn't this something that would come out in the audit?
Yeah,
Like
it's
the
not a
audit
best
would
practice.
find exactly the exceptions
Right, the
that
audit's
we're
gonna
gonna
make the
find.
finding. I mean, it doesn't comport, if you're talking about, this is an internal account, and bottom line is, it's our EIN number, so this is an internal account, period. So it has to comply with our internal account rules. Our internal account rules are whoever's the bookkeeper does not sign checks. Those are our rules, okay? I can't tell you when this was set up in 2005, what our procedure rules back then were for internal accounts. I wasn't here, and the internal account procedures manual was set up, I wanna say in 2008, formalized. So whatever the rules were back then, that's what this account was operating under. It's not a best practice, absolutely not. And it does not comport with our rules as we stand today. As we stand today, this account, the person who is the bookkeeper, and if it remains as Ms. Tristram, she is not a signer of checks. It is Ms. Wormack and Ms. Whitmore. Those are the people who will be signing checks. That is in compliance with our trust account, or with our internal accounts and the way we manage our affairs. When it comes to someone signing a check and being a treasurer of another organization, again, nope, not a best practice to sign a check and then be the treasurer of the other. No, I'm not gonna say it is. But, and there could be an audit finding for it. But if an ad is $75, and if the check that was written from our internal account to the Flagler Live account was for $75, and there's supporting documentation for it, not a best practice, not something that we would support, but there's going to be supporting documentation that shows the money removed from the account and paid for the ad has supporting documentation. Again, not a good practice. Correct.
Let me just clarify too, because I just received a message from Cheryl that just to put this on the record, I'd have to look into it a little bit more. This is really what the auditors are going to be doing. But she stated that it's not actual an expense written to Flagler Live. It's Flagler Live who donates money for advertising.
Oh, it's an in-kind donation?
Yes. Well, I believe it's a deposit.
So it's actually not advertising. Yeah, I just got the same message. So
the payments from Flagler Live for advertising and the concert programs. So let me just put that on the record for clarification.
So it's a cut.
I will tell you that in working with auditors, we have to, they ask to know about who's the related parties, things like that. That's something they always look at. So this has already been given to them, so they will be looking at that sort of thing.
So we have to wait. When will the audit be back? 3? 4?
Like I said, they're going to try for the end of June, but it might be in July.
So from here forward right now, so they no longer have any signing authority on or access to the account, correct?
There is a pending charge.
Well, I meant the new one.
Oh, no.
From here forward, that is ended, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's one pending charge on the PNC Bank. There's been just enough money left in that, $27.50 to cover that charge. Cheryl has to, that bank account will be closed as soon as that clears. We're hoping to clear today. And then with the new bank, it's just Carrie and myself. We're the only signers on there.
Okay, and I think it's necessary for them to update their website also because this was printed a few days ago, But for example, to get advertising to support the youth orchestra, these payments are still being directed to their house. So should these things be coming to the school and not to someone's personal home?
Well, now the
No, they
accounts will
can-
be all changed, right?
Right, we used to get checks at the youth center also, okay, for some, but then we had to go through our bookkeeper or our process to
Deposit them.
deposit it into the school account.
All right.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Well, the audit, we will see the audit. We're gonna have to really look at this structure, because from my purview, I don't see how this structure that this has been operating under for this many years can continue. We talked about the possibility of wanting to bring this program into the school. I don't know if that's the time or not, but it's something that if that's something that we were going to do, we might want to start having those conversations.
What do you mean? It's already in the school. It's already a school account. It's
Yeah.
already a district account.
I know, but I really have, personally, I really have questions about well, let's put it this way. I would suggest that we have a outside counsel to review the structure of this and to be certain that we are in compliance with both corporate structure and tax law. If we can get assurance to say, hey, we are doing the right thing here, then we can move forward and continue in this matter. But this is really messy, right? And the fact that we have a memorandum of understanding with somebody else, that would imply that they are, just like every other memorandum of understanding we have, that is an entity or a person on the other side of that, right? And in this case, we're ignoring the fact that we have a memorandum of understanding. You're basically saying we have a memorandum of understanding with ourselves.
Cheryl used to say that. Well, I don't understand why we're doing a memorandum of understanding, because you're doing a memorandum of understanding with yourself. She literally has said that in public meetings.
Yeah, but then also when we were talking about this at the workshop, it was said, oh, we pay you back some money, right? There's constantly this conversation that they view themselves as an entity, but in fact, they're not really sending, the money's actually just coming right back out of our account, but I'm just saying that everybody here.
But that's not true, Will.
Well, most people that I've talked to have said that they thought that Flagler Youth Orchestra, whether it is or it's not, right? They thought it was a separate entity, right? And that is, that's concerning, because that shouldn't have been so unobvious to everybody, right? So what I'm saying is, in conclusion here, is that if we're gonna, as a board, I think we have a duty to make sure that this structure is acceptable from a tax perspective, because if this was the way it looks to me as a separate entity, Cheryl Tristam is a sole proprietorship. That's how this would look, right? Because they're raising the money, right? So again, this is how I see it. If this is totally legit, then let's keep running with it, right? But I think in light of all this, we have to stop and tighten the screws here, dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure we're doing the right thing.
So just so we're clear, Patty already said that we're doing that with an outside auditor. They're doing that for 3.5 years.
Well, no, we're doing an audit of the bank accounts. What I'm talking about is the structure itself. I want to have a legal opinion and from a corporate tax attorney that this does not violate any sort of tax law or corporate relationship between our school and this organization. And if it is, let's fix it.
Right. So I would say we need to read our own policies, because our own policies talk about the setting up of accounts like this.
The policy has nothing to do with what I just said.
No.
Policy, I'm talking about the relationship between us
I'm
and,
following what you're
Okay,
saying, but
well
what
then-
I'm saying to you is that is our account.
Let's not talk about bank accounts,
No,
let's talk about structure.
no, let's hold on a second, though. I think it's very, very clear. First of all, any kind of judgment for anybody should probably be suspended until we get the results of the audit. But with that being said, every single time, and even during the performances, Cheryl is very clear that this is a Flagler County Schools program.
Whatever
the
she
beginning
says.
of every program publicly, at board meetings when she does her presentation, she has been very transparent in that.
One can say anything they want.
I'm just
And-
saying
and-
to you that this school district screwed this up.
Okay, well, that's where, so then we're gonna have to fix it. It's gonna be on our laps.
I think that's
But
exactly
my
what
point.
staff is doing.
This is two separate things. This audit is totally separate from what I'm talking about. What we're doing there is auditing the bank account. I'm talking about how we go forward as if Flagler or Youth Orchestra is because do we have a DBA? Are we running a DBA on this here, or I mean,
Christy or Superintendent Middlestead, do we have any other programs that have an internal account?
Well, I don't understand the question. I mean, yes.
What kind of internal accounts do we have?
Our football teams have internal accounts. The football teams also, or at least Flagler Palm Coast High School, has a booster account in addition to the internal account. All of our schools, every single school, elementary, middle, and high school, the principals have an internal account.
So there is a structure
We
for
have a structure in
internal
place for
accounts.
internal accounts, yes ma'am.
But those
So the only
staff
thing that
work
has
for us.
failed here is the oversight from the district, because we did not oversee this account appropriately. The structure is allowed.
So yes, internal accounts are permitted to exist for a variety of
Right. It's in policy.
Purposes.
Right.
Internal accounts are different from booster accounts, are different from PTOs.
Right.
Those are all different entities, or all different types of accounts that we have and we operate within the district confines. A booster account, if it's going to be per our procedure manual, if a booster account is going to be raising funds in excess of $5,000, they must be a 501c3. If they collect funds less than $5,000, best practice to be a 501c3, but not required. Same thing with PTOs. They are going to, with boosters and PTOs, they will have officers, they will have a board, they will have bylaws. In internal accounts, do not have officers, do not have boards, and do not have bylaws.
So the structure exists, and within the tax code is allowed.
Well, tax code doesn't
It's all the
apply
same.
because we are a government entity and we are a tax exempt
Right.
government entity.
Right.
So we do not pay taxes, we do not file taxes for our internal accounts at all. We do not do that. If a PTO, if a booster club, if they are operating as a 501c3, they will file taxes. That is not taxes in the sense of paying taxes. They file a form that sets forth the income received and the expenses made, and they have to put it into the pots that comply with how they're allowed to expend their dollars. And they submit that form to the Internal Revenue Service so that they can continue to be a 501c3 exempt organization.
Okay.
That is my understanding of tax code.
But I do agree with you, Will, that I do think some of our financial and budgeting procedures need to be looked at. Because I know we have some concerns with booster clubs and the accountability of those accounts and checks being written to personal people and deposited, and there's no accountability for that. So there's a number of budgeting issues that maybe we need to take a closer look at.
Are you
But we
talking
probably
specifically
should
about
wait.
boosters or?
Yeah. But again, we should probably wait until we
But
get
the
to audit
boosters
that.
aren't ours, right? Okay.
Boosters are not ours. The only time we have, on 2 occasions in the past, we have done an audit of booster accounts when there has been a complaint made by somebody who has donated to a booster account of misappropriation of funds or misuse of funds, et cetera. And under those circumstances, Joanne Germino would perform that audit.
And in those situations, people should not be donating personalized checks to people. They should be donating them to the booster.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But in the reference you said as a football team, those programs involve employees of the school.
Not always, the boosters don't.
Well, boosters are not talking about boosters. We're talking about internal accounts.
Yes,
Well,
so I'm going to say yes.
But yes and no.
Because these are not employees. They are independent contractors.
But they're employees.
So I'm going to say
No,
yes.
they're not.
So I'm going to say yes and no. It depends
Contract.
on the coach. That was,
Okay.
so not all coaches, our coaches that are hired, some are employees of the district, and occasionally we have coaches that get hired to be a coach, just to coach that program. We have assistant coaches that some are volunteers, so yes, they are our employees, and we do have people who are on personal services contracts, so they are on a personal service contract, so they are not employees of the district wherein they are receiving benefits, but they are performing services at our direction under that personal services contract. And the Youth Strings program is only one example of that. We have the personal services contracts used frequently in our adult ed program.
Okay, well, I guess we'll wait to see what the results of the audit, and then we'll have another conversation from there and see how we move forward with this. Thank you.
Okay, the only thing that I want to add is a couple of things. One, I thank Will for finding this out. This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is amazing, because we've been going through this, you've been going through it for 23
I always thought it
years.
was
Right, right.
in the internal account.
And, we have had, 4 or 5 different superintendents. We have had 2 finance directors, and nobody's ever picked it up. Nobody's picked it up, which is amazing to me, because it's not like the Flagler Youth Orchestra hasn't come up for the conversation in the past. But we all assumed.
But that
we
is-
all know what assuming does, and it worked, because it made us all look bad, as far as I'm concerned. I'm glad that we're finally have an opportunity now
Clean it
to
up.
get it right, because it is a wonderful program. It serves a lot of our children and their families, and it's unique, but we've got to get it under our rules and regulations. And I myself, I've worked under internal account for a very long time. There are rules, there are regulations. We followed that red book to a T, and they made sure we did. And we got audited every summer. We got audited. And there's questions that I have. I don't understand. We were a member of PNC Bank, were we not, years ago? They were part of the school district was.
Yes.
It
I think when Bill was here.
Cypress Coquina, and then
Yeah.
RBC, and then we switched to Intracoastal.
Yeah, yes, but at that time, I don't understand, when we cleaned out all of our accounts, why wasn't that account included? That's a concern that I don't get it. Do you understand? Because they cleared out all the monies, they cleared out all
Well,
the
I'm
accounts.
hoping that
So
when
there's-
we go back,
Yeah.
we can really piece together a good timeline
Yeah.
of how this slipped
So
through the
there's 2
cracks.
separate things, Cheryl, just to answer your question.
Yeah.
The internal accounts are overseen by the schools or departments. When we change banks, that's our district banks.
Okay.
So we have payroll, accounts payable,
Yeah.
self-insurance. That's a district level. So we're
Okay.
under a contract with the bank for those. But the internal accounts, the schools use who they want to.
Okay.
I
So
think
they
we're down to
they're
like
not
2 different
bound to the
banks.
same banks?
No,
Okay.
they're not bound by
That
our
answers that-
contract.
That answers that question. Yeah, that does. But I'm glad we're getting there. I'm glad we finally get this straightened out. So I'm glad you asked for those, because it made us understand there's a problem here, and it's been a 18-year problem. An 18-year problem. It's not something that, there's been a lot of school board members that were here that aren't here anymore. Nobody saw it, nobody got to it. So it's good we're doing what we're doing, and we're gonna get it cleaned up, and we're gonna make it right. So it's right for our families, it's right for our tax base, it's right, but we don't have taxes, but we're doing the right thing. And that's our goal, to get this thing cleaned up once and for all and move forward. So that's a good thing, that's a good thing, okay? All right,
Move on.
all right, ready to move on. We
All right.
got a couple other items under finance.
Yes, 7.08 is the trim
Yes.
calendar for 23-24. I do want to just note that the calendar actually worked out well this year, and that being said is that we were able to piggyback off of existing meetings for the most part, which will minimize the amount of special meetings that we have to have, or the amount of board meetings that the board will have to come into in addition. Sometimes it doesn't always work out that way, but it did work out for the most part. So you can see here the trim calendar for the summer.
And these are required, we cannot adjust them. They are what they are, we have to maintain.
Yes, it
this.
follows a very strict timeline
Yes.
that we have to
We need a
adhere by.
majority, so, yeah.
Yes, so please mark your calendars, make sure we have them all on there, because we have to have, right?
Patty, will you send out the calendar invite for all of these? Or are they already on our calendar?
I'll get with Megan and follow up.
Okay.
Okay, that's good, thank you, that would be helpful. All right, 709,
This is just the quarterly report, the quarterly report for impact fees. This is just for informational purposes only.
yeah, I'm very confused though. Anybody have anything they'd like to say first? My confusion is, it seems like we're collecting less and yet we have increased our impact fees, which somewhat concerns me because I know the buildings went on like crazy. What happening here? Is it because the fourth quarter's not coming in, or what, any thoughts?
I do not have any thoughts on that. I think that's something that we would,
Cheryl, where are you seeing that? What do you mean?
Look at 22, 23, look at October, look at the final numbers. So if you look even at quarter 1, 2, and 3 now, compare them to quarter 1, 2, and 3 of 21, 22. They're less substantially. And I don't understand why we're collecting
like
less
quarter
now.
3.
Yeah, do you see the totals?
Yeah.
And I just don't understand, by increasing our impact fees and the amount of building that's going on.
Yeah, no, she's right.
well, maybe,
yeah,
that's something
confusing
that,
to me, and I
yeah,
don't
I would have to
understand.
have our planner dig down into that.
Yeah,
Maybe
makes
it's
no sense.
slowing
I don't know
down,
if quarter four's
I mean,
gonna- I
we
know
wouldn't have
we'll
that many.
see that for a while, but,
Palm Coast is down and the county is down. That doesn't make sense.
yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. I don't understand, because we increased our fees, and we know they're building all over the place.
It
So
could have
what's
been,
happening?
but it.
Well,
Mr.
it
Freeman,
could be.
When is the impact fee collected?
It is collected 4 times a year, and what,
Could that be proportionate fair share?
It might be piece of it, but
Because they're
it might be a
paying-
time.
It doesn't make sense. We should be above.
When do we get it? Is
Yeah,
it
no,
before
but
the-
proportionate fair share.
Yeah,
before
that's part.
building and all that starts, right?
well, we get it when the permits are pulled. So that's when the impact fees are. And this is depicting, the impact fee changed on September. So we are getting some that are either on the old system, the old 3600, or the new 54. And then we are seeing, I just saw a report here recently of there was some difference that was made up. So I would think that this next quarter that it would start
Show
to
the
increase,
difference.
but we can
Well, and-
definitely look into it.
And some of the building that you're seeing, the permit could have been
Permitted the
pulled.
year before.
Right.
The year
Right.
before.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Right.
thinking too. I'm
Right.
thinking that probably is the case, but we know there's been probably a lot. I heard there's so many permits being pulled right now that it's an 8-month wait period if you want to build a home. 8 months until they can get to the permit.
No, I didn't even
I just heard that recently from a builder, so that has me somewhat concerned. So maybe they have to hire people for permit department. I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that last, on impact fees?
Nope.
No, thanks, Patty.
Thank you.
All right, going down now to academic services.
There's one
Oops,
more.
there's one more. 710, permission to advertise designated senior management service class positions.
It's me.
Okay,
Sort of, kind of.
sort of, kind of, okay.
Chair Massaro, board members, superintendent, middle staff. Agenda item 7.10 is sort of a cleanup. We have made changes. We no longer have executive directors, we changed the titles of our cabinet members to chiefs. And with that change, because it no longer says Executive Director of Leadership and Development, that was the designated title. So the individual who is serving as the Assistant Superintendent of Academics, for example, is not being compensated for the FRS retirement, that senior service management. They're not receiving that percentage because the percentage is attached to that job title. So we are making that correction going forward, and you can see we are changing the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning is the Assistant Superintendent of Academic Services. For the Executive Director of Instructional and Operational Innovation, that is Mr. Deasing. That becomes the Chief of Technology and Innovation. Executive Director of Student and Community Engagement becomes the Chief of Operations Services, and the Executive Director of Leadership Development becomes the Chief of Human Resource Officer. So those are the title changes. We need to advertise this, so I'm requesting permission to advertise this. It will be advertised for 2 weeks in a row in the newspaper, and then after that, it will then just become we'll be able to submit that documentation to the department, and then they will make that change so that come 1 July, we will be able to, when we pay the employees, they will be able to be included in that higher percentage for the senior management services. So this will not come back before you. It's permission to advertise for that 2-week period. And that'll come to you for approval at the night meeting so that I have the permission to advertise.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. That's it. All right. Going down now to 9, Academic Services. We'll ask Ms. York to join us for a request for board approval of a new contract between Flagler County Schools and ECTAC.
Afternoon, Board Superintendent.
Hello.
I am here to ask for the board to approve a contract between Flagler County Schools and ECTAC. ECTAC is the acronym for East Coast Technical Assistance Center, and they actually provide ongoing technical assistance for the Federal Programs Office for all of our federal programs, Title I, Title II, Title III, 4, and 9, as well as all of the ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3, and years federal dollars that we're managing right now. And the role that they play is they provide training for my staff. They support us in audits and audit requirements. They support us in being able to be an intermediary agency when there's concerns or questions about processes with the Florida Department of Education, and perhaps how things might be coming out of the department that may not necessarily align to federal guidelines. So they help us negotiate and navigate that, and they work collaboratively with the department to kind of help support, to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're all in compliance. And I know there's been some struggles with a lot of the changes at DOE over the last couple of years. They've just had a really big federal audit, and they've had to make some significant changes. So ECTAC has really been supporting all of us and helping make sure that we're navigating all of our processes and making sure that we're realigning with all of the changes and expectations so we can continue to receive clean audits in all of our federal grants.
So they're basically like a subject matter expert in
Yes.
this area.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, concerns? Nope, we're good. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Capturing Kids' Heart, 9.02, Mr. Reeves.
Good afternoon, Chair, board members, Superintendent. This is a continuation from last year. We did a very successful rollout of training for our staff for this Capturing Kids' Hearts program, and we're looking to continue that effort with our employees that were hired through last year. We did a makeup time for them in January. There's still more that weren't captured in that. And so we are setting up two-day trainings, July 10th, 11th, and the 12th and 13th, for 50 employees in each session. They're full, and it's been quite well received from the campus and the staff and from the students and families. So it's a great program, and this is for $44,600 for that training for the 2 days, for the 2-day trainings for 4 days.
Questions?
The only recommendation possibly for the attachment for the item, on page 3, where we're looking at quantity and it says 2, can we put in parentheses 100 participants?
Okay, yes.
So it just looks clear to the community and the public.
Sure, it says 2 quantity, 50 participants, we can do that.
Yeah.
We can put the total.
Yeah, 100
That's fine.
participants.
Yep, that's absolutely good.
Anyone else?
Do you know if we'll be doing, this might be a premature question, but I know when we did our kickoff, we kind of focused and we did some capturing kids' hearts training, and we included the board. Are we thinking of maybe doing anything like that?
We're looking at some of that stuff,
Yeah.
as our funds for ESSER are depleting. I did talk to Capture Kids' Hearts, and right now the focus was to try and capture
For the
our
new people.
employees and get them up to speed, and they understood and agreed to focus on that energy for that for now. We can come back to look at that.
It's very powerful training
And
for the
4 of us
board.
have not been trained, so
We can certainly look at
certainly
that.
it might be something to
Yeah, it was
investigate.
really,
It's
really good.
from what I've heard.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
it was great.
All right.
I bet they capture in the school board numbers.
We can have that. That's
Yeah,
not a
that
problem.
would, might be
Give you some
a little
options.
pressure, yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Nope.
And then I've got the 9.4, 9.5, 9.6, the
Okay,
travel.
so we're going on, well, 9,
then
what
we'll
do you
come
want
back
to
to
do?
that.
We've got 9.3
Sitting here.
next. Daytona College articulation agreement, Ms. Foster Day? You got that?
No, Ms. Foster does.
Well, you might as well just sit back there because you're coming right back.
Yep, exactly.
Hi, good afternoon. So before you have the articulation agreement between Flagler Schools and Daytona State College, it's kind of a formality. We renew this every year. And this allows our students to take the dual enrollment courses. You can see on the red line document that the bulk of the changes are dates throughout, some title changes between DSC staff and Flagler Schools employees. There is an added requirement on page 6 for student advising sessions. Just another formality is to add the inclusion of ACE to signify that the weighting mirrors that of ACE, AP, and IB courses that are offered at the schools. The inclusion of the dual enrollment guide, which our students and our families have been directed to look at. On page 7, something that is a piece of clarification that is elsewhere within their dual enrollment guide, but was important for them to point out, is that under the withdrawals, if a student withdraws from classes, it can impact their continued eligibility, though it does not have an impact on their GPA. And it's just, they're trying to let students know in advance and very explicitly here, as well as in the dual enrollment guide, that that could have an impact on continued eligibility. On page 9, we have the addition of some tests, the pre-ACT, PSAT, and MSQT for initial enrollment, which our students take, and as it is, the PSAT and MSQT, we have a school day for that. And then there is the credit by exam. There were some updates to remove the TABE and add the CASAS assessment, and that's on page 11. And then finally, which you won't see on this document, but on the final signed copy, Appendix B has been added in. It is something that has always existed for us. It just sets forth the credentialing for our teachers who teach our courses on campus that are DSC courses, but are taught by our Flagler County employees. And it just sets forth their eligibility, and it codifies the capacity for our SLS courses for what we can, the number of students that we can teach on campus in each semester. So those are the only real changes this year. Is this right? They can start in the 6th grade?
Yeah.
That
Yes,
is
that's in
amazing.
statute, yes. But something that you do want to understand is that while a student may start in the 6th grade, they must have an established GPA and the test scores, which many 6th graders typically don't have, because even if a student, for example, we had a student who came in with Algebra 1 course from a school that's not our
it's not accredited under our accreditation umbrella, so what happens per the state is they don't get an established GPA for it, but they do get the credit granted to them. So they'll have a P on their transcript signifying that they've passed the course, but that does not get them the GPA. So they have to have the course requirements to be eligible and the established GPA and testing scores. So we do have a few middle schoolers enrolled in dual enrollment courses at this time.
Cool.
Yep. Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Reeves, we've got 904, 905, and 906, which I believe are all yours.
This travel consent items, Chair, if you look at, one is MHS Choir, one is Bunnell Elementary's FFA,
Yes.
and then we have Flagler Palm Coast Yearbook.
All right, I had a question for the choir. What are the number, there's no numbers, so I was wondering how many students are involved in that?
15.
15?
15.
15 students. Questions, anybody? On any of them? No, that was easy. Okay. All right, going on to 10, operational services, consent, proportionate share, grand reserve. Mr. Whitson, your first time to the table. Welcome.
Thank you.
It came at the workshop.
Chairman Singer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is number
First time
2.
here. Yeah,
Number
two
2 for
the first
me.
of-
Yeah. I think we've gone over these before, but just to give you a quick overview, these are Grand Reserve Phase 5, which is in Bunnell. That's 112 single-family homes. And the next one is akin to it. It's right next to it. It's Phase 6, which is 141 single-family homes. The new one is Ocean Village Phase 1, which is an apartment complex at Colbert Lane and Highway 100. And Phase 1 is 278 units. And there are plans for additional units, but that's what they want to proceed with now.
Okey dokey.
Be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Will this end, do you know if this end Grand Reserve's expansion, or are they still have land over there?
I think they still have land.
There's still more?
Yes, ma'am. But I'm just now kind of jumping into all these different ones, and we'll catch up, and I need to have a one-on-one with Adrian over at Bunnell, but
Okay.
yeah.
For the ocean proper
Ocean
project,
Village?
yeah, is that on the, before you get to the storage facility? Is that what
Yes.
that is on that?
It's at the corner of Colbert and 100. There's a wooded area
Yeah,
in
big
there.
area there.
Yes, ma'am, and I believe there's a sign up there if you notice when you go by.
Now there is.
Yeah. Someone told me, I think Dana told me her husband used to hunt over there or something.
Yeah, there was a big hunt camp back there.
Hogs and a turkey.
Yep.
Running out of
Yeah,
space.
exactly.
Yep.
You used to go sand dune buggying back there.
Ah.
All right, any questions on any of those 3 proportionate share agreements? Seeing none, thank you.
Welcome, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I know. School Board Attorney Consent 13, permission to advertise new online agreement policy and updates to student records policy. Ms. Gavin, you're back.
You went over HR, but all the.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
skipped
it.
it.
Oh, how can I miss that? We'll go back.
Bob's like, how about me?
Come on, Bob, you liked
I'll
that, I
sit
missed
back
that, didn't you? I skipped 11, so 11. Human Resources, request board approval for personnel items. 1101. Missed it.
Good afternoon, Chairman Sparrow, board members, Superintendent Millstadt. We have consent items, the consent of personal actions. We also have a look at what they call the high demand teachers list, formerly known as the critical shortage teachers list. And we have the placeholder for personnel reappointments, which will be complete after all evaluations are completed, ready for board action on June 20th. Preparation for the new fiscal year. Entertain any questions?
And then I had earlier asked the question of the superintendent and asked you to say that. Right now, it looks like we have 14 teachers resigning, just resigning, and we have an additional 2 or 3 that are retiring. So I thought that was a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, I heard it isn't. What is your opinion?
And some of these were how we process when we actually received. So when we sent out the survey, folks intending not to return, that was only step 1.
Yeah.
Step 1, you tell us you're not going to return, but we don't actually process you as somebody who's not going to return until you turn in your letter of resignation. So, in this era of mobility, I mean, it really is an employee rich environment as far as the employee has a lot of options in a critical teacher shortage, around the country, and in Florida being probably the toughest of the critical teachers, the shortages in the area. So, folks move for a lot of different reasons, and that's where we are, all the districts.
The only other thing I was going to say, we did recently have job fairs.
We did.
How did that go?
Well, I can tell you that because we ran numbers. We did 2 job fairs. We figured our start point to get ready for the next year was right at the point where we sent out the survey. Okay, so looking at our hires that happened from April 24th until the present, we've got 86 folks, teachers, either fully hired or in the process. Okay, so interviewed and all the way through. So that's definitely a win.
Oh, yeah,
now, do we still have a hill to climb? Yes, because we currently have 68 advertised instructional vacancies. But overall, I'm confident we're in a pretty good place as far as instructional needs coming into mid-June with 86 hires and 68 vacancies in this climate. We're looking at the possibility of a late July Saturday job fair with a focus on non-instruct, but also putting instructional folks into the mix again as well. But that'll be a needs-based thing that we'll look at after we come out the other side of 4th of July.
Dr. Cox.
Are we having any conversations? I know that I've heard some concerns about teachers who had years of experience and not getting those years of experience granted and leaving or resigning for that reason. Is it a policy issue that we need to look at? Is there something, because in this market, I just don't think we can afford to lose anybody.
And this was part
especially experience, yeah.
No, this was part of the collective bargaining. And so the way it's actually written into the contract this year is the new scale as far as years of experience began with this year's folks into the July 1. Okay, we did some research into it. The initial pool of folks that might be affected were right around 20. Okay, the number of folks that are confirmed that have left, right around 2 or 3. Okay, the number of calls that I've gotten probably are right around 10. So I mean that's.
10 teachers or 10 teachers.
I'm not.
Right?
I'm not. Those are the numbers. I'm not diminishing that at all
Right.
because every teacher is hugely important right now in this climate.
Yeah.
So we'd love to keep them all, but that would take a look by the board as far as what we have in the bargaining agreement.
Got you. And that would be something we'd have to talk about in executive session. Yeah. Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Willett.
Thank you.
All right. Going down to 1301, permission to advertise new online agreement policy and updates the student records policy. Ms. Gap.
Thank you, Chair Massaro. I am coming before you, Board, to request permission to advertise the update to the student records policy and then to add a new policy which actually has to do with online agreements. So the first one is our student records policy. And the reason why we are making these changes to this policy is twofold. First and foremost, Florida Administrative Code Rule 6A 1.0955, primarily subsection 9, had to do with personally identifiable information that is potentially captured when we have any kind of online software being utilized by our students. And so this captures the personally identifiable information section of that, telling parents and notifying parents with respect to that kind of information and how they have a right to know about that information. They can request that information, and then we have an obligation to provide it. It also captures, again, pursuant to the legislative changes and the administrative code changes, the way that we are sharing the student records information, more specifically with respect to mental health information, the requirement of 3 days. Also, it's capturing and recognizing students that are 18 years old. It gives them a definition that those students are different from under 18 because they also have a right to have notice of that information that is being captured on them, and they have a right to say whether they want that to be secured or not. And so that is the student records piece. And so all of those changes that are in there are a part of the changes that were made pursuant to the administrative code. The other policy that we will be advertising is the online agreements policy. This policy was created so I sat with 3 other school board attorneys, the Citrus County School Board Attorney, the Escambia County School Board Attorney, and the Monroe County School Board Attorney. And we tackled creating an online educational service agreement or contract that is going to be utilized with Neola. And for those school boards that use Neola, they will be probably capturing this, and then NEFAC is the other big group, and this is the policy that we created as a result of 6A 1.0955 having to do with online agreements. So once again, what that really has to do with is when we contract for online agreements, Skyward is an example of an online agreement that we have. And if we are capturing student information, parents have a right to know how that student information is being retained by that third-party company, how it's being maintained, how it is being protected, when they are going to be destroying that information, how it would be getting returned to us. And so we now have to have, with every single company that we have an online agreement with, and that includes if a teacher sees that there is the potential for a free app that they could have their students access, maybe to take a look at whether or not they have their essay is in compliance with not plagiarizing. That would be potentially an online agreement. It could be offered free. Unfortunately, they could be storing the information, the student's name, the student's ID number, knowing whether or not it's a girl, and capturing what grade level they're in. And that could then be reverse engineered back to figuring out, okay, you've got a girl, she's 14 years old, she is writing about puppies, she likes puppies, so let's send information to that student about puppies and where you can get dog food or whatever. That's sort of the concept behind it, is who is this information being shared with, how is it being shared, how is it being retained, how are we making sure that that student information, if there is a breach, how would that be disclosed? So as a result of the requirement under 6A-1.0955 that says parents have a right to know when any student information is being collected by an outside entity or a third party, how it's being shared, how it's being maintained, we have to have a format of how we're going to be retaining and securing that. Yeah, it's very
How in the world are you gonna control this? So I guess, Ryan, I've got questions for Ryan.
We have created, there is an agreement that has been created by, well, not by us, so there is a national alliance that we, and when I say we, the state of Florida and all of the school districts were permitted to be a part of, and the data privacy agreement was created. It is a national agreement that has been used. This isn't new. It's only new to us because if a parent were to say, I want to know who my student's information is being shared with, we have to have a mechanism. It has to be online. It has to be disclosed. They have to be able to click. They have to be able to get to those agreements. And if we don't have that in place, they have the ability to sue the district. And then we would end up in lawsuits. So because of that, we have to be very transparent, very open about what agreements. And so Ryan has been a part of the National Alliance, the Florida Alliance. I would sit online, Ryan would be online with the various school districts that were all a part of this. And from it, there has been generated a master agreement that we will use with any of our companies, along with the standard Schedule A, which is the DPA agreement, which sets forth how they are retaining the agreement. There are A through H exhibits that are included in this, so it basically becomes about a 60-page agreement that everyone will have to sign. And the bottom line at the end of the day, if it is an online software that's securing or acquiring information on our students, if they're not willing to sign this, bottom line, we can't do the agreement with them. Teachers, another component of this is that teachers cannot just go ahead and go, ooh, a free app. I'm gonna go ahead and click on it and sign up for it and have my kids click on it and sign up for it. That's not permitted, and if they do it, it could subject them to discipline, because that's how serious this is. They are not, it's saying and acknowledging that they're not going to be selling our student information to a third party. That's not permissible, and they have to understand that.
So I guess my question is, I'm just thinking of all the contracts we have with all sorts of online programs for students and teachers. So are we going to send something to every single one of those contractors to say, hey, oh, by the way, you have to adhere to X, Y, and Z?
Yes, but behind the scenes and also working with the attorney group for the state was a CIO state group as well. So there was a group of about 20 of us out of the 67 districts that participated in that team. On our side, Tom Ingram from Escambia really led that charge. He worked with Department of Education for the adoption of the national contract and program. So a lot of that contract is national, so you have a lot of vendors that have seen it. There's some very specific stuff to meet the letter of the law for the state of Florida that has been developed, and that's in attachment H, I believe, which is some of those specifics. So it is a big undertaking to kind of put these things all into place. But I would say so far, for the number of vendors that we've been able to work through this with, it's not the first time that they've seen a contract in a similar format. So as Christy was saying, most districts have taken the work that has been done over the last something.
Since October.
Yeah, since October, and then started moving forward with them. I won't say everyone is doing implementation exactly the same, but a lot of the work that's being done is being shared through the state, so that when we do have some of these master contracts for some of these larger vendors, that we're able to then sign off and piggyback, but there's a section that was built so that once one district that's a member of the consortia group signs off on it, then all of the other districts can sign off on that as well.
Right.
So the work is not duplicated 67 times.
It becomes a me too.
And then
Yeah.
the sharing of data, well, the sharing of the information being collected. So if you think about, you know, like Performance Matters, which is, we're in the middle of the conversation with them with Power School, because we have a couple of different pieces. They're going through and they check off all the data that they hold, but they also, in that contract, say they do not share any information, right? And so what most districts are doing, and we're following suit similar to a couple of the districts, we're developing a dashboard that will be available on our website that will show all of the contracts that are in place, the software applications, what grade levels that they're appropriate for or could be used in, and then the data services agreement and the student safety and security agreement posted online, so parents can then go right there to see what data is collected. Now, if we have a situation where we have specific software that has some component that is not directly follow suit, so to speak, then it can be used, but parents then have to have the ability to opt out of using that. So it would be then on the district to inform that student. So the example that has been kind of floated around is some very specific curricula that would be for a particular topic where there may be limited opportunities for those. And we would say, look, if you want to participate in this program, you have to sign off knowing that this particular set of data is being collected.
How are teachers supposed to manage all that?
Well, that's what we're still working through with that as well. So as this has started coming, a lot of the stuff on the background of it that ties in with is relying on DOE having some additional guidelines for what some of this stuff is, particularly about like what an web application is. There's still some question about particular of what is permissible, what is not, what are, you know, there's just several pieces. So I think Christie's team, from the legal standpoint as well as the state CIO group, we continue to develop questions to pose back to the Department of Education. So we're continuing to put that info together to pose questions that we would like clarification and or feedback on, so that we can continue to move in a direction to get there. But yes, as you can imagine, there's several.
It's
gonna
pretty
be a
significant.
process.
Yeah.
And when do they expect all of this to be in place?
So here's it was required to be in place in November. No one had it in place in November because, you know, and DOE knows that there is no one that has any of this in place, because we had to create everything, we had to establish everything. So we are going from a forward standpoint. So if it's a brand new vendor, then it's a master in-service agreement. It's the Exhibit A, which is, or Attachment A, which is the DPA, the Data Privacy Agreement, with all of the exhibits that are attached to it. If it is a current and existing, then we can do an addendum, you know, rider that we say, okay, we already have an agreement, it's a multi-year agreement, but you're going to sign this addendum saying that then attaches the data privacy agreement, saying that if you're collecting information and personally identifiable information, here's how you're storing it, and then they have to just do the checkbox, et cetera. So we've created a master service agreement, we've created an addendum agreement, and then the DPA is used in both of those. It was a large undertaking, to say the least. And like I said, there were 3 other attorneys beside myself working on this and working through this, working with the Technology Alliance group to try and understand the whole thing, so that we could all be in compliance. But we're all in the same boat, we're all working through this. Some were further ahead than others, but we're all trying to meet it as it comes.
Are there any
We're just reading
questions,
about it.
Comments? All right, we'll just keep moving forward with it then, so we get it where it needs to be. So, thank you. Academic Services, 16.01, Solution Tree, Mr. Reeves.
Mr. Chair, Board. This is a follow-up. A month or so ago, Ms. Moore presented a trip to Atlanta, and then after some discussion, we thought about, instead of taking us to Atlanta, we're bringing the mountain to us. And so this arrangement here is for 4 days of training. We can capture about 80 of our employees in this opportunity. Solution Tree is a PLC, or quality improvement process, and it's built around how to establish processes and procedures for improvement with whatever data points you're looking at. And so we're having a 2-day on-site training for our 80 staff members for our 9 schools and Flagler and at Daytona State College. And then from there, we're purchasing 2 additional days later in the fall winter for them to come back and do on-site visits and then provide feedback specifically of how next steps in the process is being implemented on their campus for professional learning communities moving forward. And so rather than go to Atlanta with a small number, we're bringing them to us, looking to expose more of our staff to this opportunity. And so we have this, and then additional $2,400 and change for the books, but the $2,485.80. But this here piece, the 4-day training, is $26,000.
Can we get more information just about what the training is?
Certainly. So Solution Tree is the training is for professional learning communities, and it's basically it's a process of how you analyze information, whatever those data points are, whether it's you're looking at academics, you're looking at discipline, any number of things, how you're gathering data and information, and then processing that for an improvement, how to make it something better. And so you're looking to bring that process back to your campuses and your grade chairs and your departments to implement that design so that when you're looking at information, whatever that information is, how do we improve our processes, how do we improve our data to move our students forward, their achievements, and our staff in their performance.
So I'm on their website, and then it shows our solutions, and there's several headings there.
Mm-hmm.
Which one are we trying to implement?
So we're looking at PLC at work.
PLC at work, okay.
And that's the one, that's the entry one position for us. And when this morning I talked about it, it's been a long minute. She used to describe it since the last time we had it in our district. Several folks have been through it. I went through it when I was in Volusia County. It's exceptional as far as just looking at process and how you improve your processes. And it's a great tool to anchor to when we look at how we're trying to move systemically our students forward in their progress, our staff forward in their processes and their instruction.
Okay, but is there like some sort of a kind of an overview of what it's gonna?
Certainly, I could provide more information on that.
Yeah, if you could.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And if I could just share just a little background to that, common planning period for secondary teachers and core content areas that are like, you want your cluster of all your algebra teachers to have that common plan period time. 2 years ago, we didn't have that in our high schools. We shifted to a 7-period day model, which now when we set up our master schedules, we're intentional on trying to make sure our like content core area teachers are able to have common plan so they can go through and facilitate some of those processes. So I think both high schools are primed and ready to go for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll get you an agenda.
All right.
Okay.
All right, Jen, you want to go on to the next one, I believe is yours, Social Studies Instructional Material, 1602.
Okay, you can see.
Both of you, yes. And yes, it says both of you.
Yes.
Ms. Ferrer.
Good. I think it's still technically afternoon.
For a little bit.
Chair, board members, and superintendent. As you are aware, we have gone through the adoption process for the K-12 Social Studies instructional materials. This process began in January, and we are asking for your approval of the recommended materials. A committee of parents, teachers, and administrators for each grade band were convened during the week of May 22nd. The following materials are being recommended for adoption. For elementary school, it will be all K-5. That is Gallopade is the publisher. For middle school, World History, Civics, and U.S. History, which is all 3 grade levels, is Cengage, also known as National Geographic. High school, World History, Government, and Economics is SAVIS, and U.S. History, TCI. Do you have any questions?
Will you add those to the agenda item?
Yes.
So we know what it is.
So we know what
Yes.
it is, we can.
Current voting on it.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, any other questions? We'll have those listed so we know at the voting meeting.
What's the high school ones again? Sorry.
High school World History, Government, and Economics is SAVIS, and then U.S. History is TCI.
And these are all approved by the state, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we already addressed 16.03. Before we begin 17, do we need a 5-minute break?
Yes.
I'm hearing a yes. So we will have a 5-minute break. We'll be back here shortly before 5 o'clock to finish this agenda.
you don't mind.
I'm just gonna begin at this point. All right, gang?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna start with 17.02. We already did 17.01. Yes, so this is the charter bus services. Ms. Collard.
Good afternoon, Board, Chairman Massaro and Superintendent Middlestat. This is request for approval of charter bus services. This is something new that the district has never bid out before. We've usually piggybacked off of other districts, but there's been a lot of changes over the years. We use charter buses for athletic trips, field trips, various extracurricular activities. We received 5 bids and looking to award to all 5 of them. There is a need. I've worked with some of the bookkeepers who make these reservations and such to ensure, you know, you don't just want to award it to 1 or 2 because again, these companies are servicing all across our area. We do 2 of them, A Candies and BTM, we do use regularly, but now we'll just be more official. This is a 2-year contract with the potential of 1 2-year renewal, so not to exceed 4 years.
Are these rates, are they higher or lower than the previous ones?
You know, every one is different. Some have gone up. They're going to go up. They're going up across the board, and that's why with piggybacking the other contracts that we were in the past, you see such a fluctuation. Some, it also could depend on like how they, how their scope of work is written. You know, some of them may not do for the first 5 hours. It might be based on 8 hours and what they have built into that number. But for the most part, it's pretty average with what the others are.
And the reason why I asked is that one of the principals had expressed that it was a challenge for field trips because they were just too expensive to, and that we couldn't use our buses because they're in service, you know, so they were just a bit of a challenge.
Right. No, I mean, there is, and these are not to, one thing I did with this is a not to exceed price. So if they go out and request a quote that they have a trip upcoming, there is any of these companies they can go to. They can go to multiple, and whoever gives them the best price back, that's who they can go with. There's nothing to stop them. And again, it could be based upon the time. They could, BTM could come in and say, our first 5 hours is $1,200 because maybe they had just had a cancellation and wanted to pick something up. So these are not to exceed rates.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yes, so not to say that it won't come at that, but they can always come in lower.
I would, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I saw MCA's price, I thought they must be luxury sedan.
Pretty much, I don't find that they'll probably be
utilized.
utilized,
And
but
videos at every seat, one of those deals.
yeah, it's hard to, you know, it's hard to declare them, you know, to not award it to them because you never know when it could be that we need something on the flight. It has come up.
Right.
Would we want to spend $3,000 for 5 hours plus, you know, that rate?
No.
Likely not. So, but it's, you know, their price is in line if they were doing a multiple day or an overnight stay. So it's kind of, that's always an option.
It's just funny.
Right.
I was shocked hearing from the teachers what some of the costs for the buses were. So I'm glad we put a bid out. So if I'm understanding you correctly, your recommendation is to approve all of them.
Correct.
And this is a price not to be exceeded.
Correct.
So basically a teacher might be able to shop around a little bit or say to BTM, hey, Candies is gonna do it for me for $1,100.
Well, you're never supposed to do that in procurement, is to bid shop like that. But
the teacher.
I
never got that. I never understood that. I mean, like, you know.
You're not supposed to price shop. That's kind of a rule.
Well, is
in
that
public
price shopping
procurement.
or is that allowing them to outbid each other?
Yeah. it's a little different than what you would do at home, saying, can you give it to me for this, because
So-and-so
so-and-so is
is-
gonna give it to me, you're not supposed to do that in public procurement.
So are
There's
these
more
the prices
guidelines.
they're stuck with?
It is, but they can, again, the intention is, one, get your reservations in early enough that you're not waiting till the last minute when there's nothing. So
Right.
you know, I mean, because again, think of like Grad Bash or anything like that.
Right.
You know, this will allow now, if our
Book it
athletics
now.
department, it has things upcoming for the fall season for football. Get it in now if they need to. I don't know if they use them like that. But whatever you know is out there, get it out there and get the reservation booked, because the earlier you get it, the better, and you might get somewhat of a discount.
Is this primarily for, I would have thought this would be primarily for field trips during the
Yes.
day. Is it for athletics as well?
I think sometimes
Or are they
athletics may
using
use it.
our
I think more
buses?
for if they have districts and
Okay.
things like that that
Okay,
they're
like a
going.
special trip.
Mhm.
Championship or something.
All right, any other questions?
I'm just excited to see that kids might go on field trips.
Right.
So that's
There's
pretty
been a lot
cool.
more.
Good.
All right, so we're moving down now to 17.3. Request board approval for award company contract for invitation to bid Flagler High School parking lot.
This
Mr.
one
Bush
we-
is going to join you.
Mr. Bush is not feeling well today. It's Mr. Coates.
Mr. Coates instead.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
So this we presented at the information workshop last month.
The 16th.
And gave the presentation, the overview of what's being done to the FPC parking lot, the changes in the drainage, and the whole front parking lot basically being redone. finally.
Yes, so we're improving the drainage and the traffic pattern out in the front parking lot only. We're recommending the board go to the lowest qualified bidder, which was 4C's Trucking, for $2,524,000. Construction should begin in March.
I was going to say, when does it start?
Question?
Questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the only questions that I had, I appreciated the presentation of the parking lot overview and stuff, but looking at the bid tabulations, it's just, and of course I don't know anything about paving a parking lot, so, but there's some elements that are so wildly different from each entity. Like if you look at the roads cost for 4C's Trucking, $6,500, but Halifax Paving is $35,000. But then, I mean, and you see different bits and pieces like that all throughout. And if you look at miscellaneous, number 8, general conditions, 4C's is $95,000 and Halifax is $500.
Wow.
It's just making, and then the very next line, right? Mobilization is $5,500 and then $50,000. There just
That's
seems
just
to be
the-
some wild.
That's just the way they break up their proposals and where they
Right.
want to put the money in. At the end of the day, it comes down to the 2.5 million, the overall price, not individual line items. I would say that 4C's is more in line with the 95,000 for general conditions. That's their overhead. That's their that's where all their upfront fees are costs.
I would go with that, and I hear what you're saying, but then look at like lines 14 and 15, right? So removal of pipe, one is saying 85,000, one is saying 45,000. Geotech stabilization material, one is talking about 105,000, one's talking about 23,000. That's a huge
So the
swing.
cost difference, and that can vary between, you know, the type of, what maybe they do in-house versus what they outsource.
Halifax Paving has a lot of millings material. I think they're off of Hull Road in Ormond Beach. They have a full gamut of material that they store. When they pull the millings off of I-95, for example,
Yeah.
they put it out there. So if they have a surplus that's they're choosing to use, that's on them.
Okay, okay.
It's really not our
So
area.
it's apples to apples though.
Yes, both of them quoted the same one. We had a good set of blueprints. We had limited questions on the blueprints when they had a chance to ask, so we feel confident that, you know, besides unforeseen issues under the ground, we feel comfortable that this is a good bid.
Is it possible to ever say to these companies, like, no, that's crazy, like, you need to come off your prices, or?
No. I mean, we put it out to bid, and we had 8 contractors that came to the pre-bid meeting. It's a mandatory pre-bid meeting that they have to attend, at least somebody. We had 8 contractors there, and we only received proposals from 2. Most of that is due, Ms. Chris did a call around to find out. Most of it's due to their current schedule, that they couldn't meet the demands of this schedule, being pretty compact from March to August 1st in a sense, to get the whole front parking lot completed.
So I guess we're pretty lucky we got 2 at least.
Yes.
I mean, in today's world, yes.
Yes.
And it's agree with what Chuck said, it comes down to your bottom line number,
Yeah,
because
and
where they
very
hide
close.
their,
Yeah, they're very
everything
close.
is across the board.
Yeah.
They were on a $2.5 million project, it was a $4,000 difference
Yeah, that's
between the
amazing.
two.
Yeah, I know. When I just was looking at the categories, I was like,
It all
what?
comes out. That's interesting.
How could one? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that one? No. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, 17.04, community eligibility provision. Like, your program, this push.
Hello. Good afternoon, Board.
Good afternoon.
Chair Massaro, Superintendent Middlestat. I have with me Miss Emily Hubeck. She is one of the professionals on our food service team. And she is here to nudge me if I get too chatty.
Welcome.
We're here to talk about next year's meal programs, and we're just going to go over a really brief history to give some context to this conversation, and follow that with a little bit more information about 2 different funding models that we have the opportunity to choose from when we sponsor federal meal programs. And then we're going to wrap it up with a couple of answers I think you may have to answers to questions you may have, as well as our recommendation moving forward to some changes that we would like to have you approve for our meal programs next year. So prior to 2010, school districts who sponsored federal meal programs just had one funding structure. You didn't have any choices. You were told this is how your programs would be reimbursed and this is how you would do things. In 2010, another opportunity presented itself to all school districts nationally, and it's called the Community Eligibility Provision. I will call it CEP from this point forward, because I get tongue-tied with the Community Eligibility Provision over and over. So that's what we're here to talk about primarily, and you probably remember we talked about this last year as well at this time. And the way, I'm sorry, let me just peek at my notes real quick. This is where you poke me. The last few years with COVID has made things a little bit, we have analyzed these 2 programs, or the funding models that we're going to talk about, since 2010. There were really no exciting changes from 2010 till COVID came to come before the board. The numbers bared out that we were continuing to do things the same, and that's why you didn't hear too much about it until COVID. So now we're here, and we'll just go forward from there. Just keep moving, and if you have questions at the end, of course, I'm happy to answer them. So the way that the funding works with reimbursement for our students qualify for free or reduced meals. That's what, or full pay meals. That's what most of people know our programs as. Under the traditional funding model of the National School Lunch Program, students are qualified individually by eligibility, and that's based on either an application that the families fill out and we process, or they're directly certified, meaning they qualify for other programs such as food stamps, Medicaid, they're homeless, they're foster students, and so we get that information not from an application, but we get it from a list of students from an alternate source, so they're directly qualified for free or reduced for free meals. Under the community eligibility provision, we look at our student base as in communities, and districts can choose how to define what a community is. A community could be one school, a community could be a cluster of multiple schools, or a community could be all of the schools in a district. And many school districts within the state of Florida have every degree of that model. Some are a few schools, some are all schools, and everywhere, some are no schools, everywhere in between. Moving forward in this presentation, our data and our information is going to presume that we are grouping our entire district into one community. So all schools in the Flagler Schools community or school district will be one community.
Does that mean we'll be CEP?
We're good.
That's what we're going to get there. I'm going to build up to that in a couple of slides.
They're done.
So just to explain a little bit more in detail about how the funding works. When we talk about the individual eligibility with the National School Lunch Program, if I'm a student who's qualified for free meals and
participate in lunch. The Flagler Schools gets $4.43 from USDA for the lunch they serve me. If Emily is qualified for reduced meals and she takes a lunch, the Flagler County School District gets $3.03 for the meal that we serve her. Paid, for purposes of my presentation, sometimes can be confusing, but paid are the students that are not, in our world, are not considered qualified for free or reduced meals. So they pay for their meals. We call them paid. So for paid students, we receive 87 cents per meal in federal reimbursement. Go ahead. With CEP funding, and this gives a little extra information, I'm gonna be a little bit quicker with this explanation. With CEP funding, once we look at the student population in the community that we define, that student population based on only directly certified students, not the application families, but only the ones that are directly certified, that percentage is multiplied by 1.6. That gives us the percentage of free meals that we can claim for reimbursement. So they pull all of our lunches together and we can claim a certain percentage of them as at the free rate versus Angie's meals, Emily's meals. We aren't looked at as individual anymore, we're looked at as a community. To give you an example of, go back one. Just so you can see the mathematics on that, I broke out a couple of schools at the bottom. They're very specific numbers for this year, or for the projections that you're gonna see. Bunnell has an identified student percentage, the directly certified students, of 69.51%. When that's multiplied by 1.6, you get 111%. Obviously, you can't go over 100%, but if Bunnell was its own community, we could claim all meals that we serve to all of the kids in that school at the free rate of $4.43. In a contrast, you can see Old King's numbers are below that. They have an identified student percentage of 45.29. When you use the 1.6 multiplier on that, that gives us a percentage of 72.5%. So at Old King's, if they were their own community, we would be able to receive the free rate of reimbursement for 72.5% of the meals we serve, and all of the rest of the meals we would be able to receive the 87 cent, the free rate. I'm sorry, the paid rate. I know it's a little confusing, but bear with me. We'll keep moving, and then certainly if you have any questions, I can go through that again. What you're looking at on this slide with the graphs or the charts, on the left-hand side with the orange header, that was those were the projections for this year, and in the considerations that we made for going into this year and deciding whether we were going to choose the CEP model or the traditional NSLP funding model. And it's broken down by school. You can see the difference between National School Lunch and CEP funding. And down in the right-hand bottom corner, you can see the $573,924.40. That is a negative disparity between the two funding options. And what you're looking at is if we were to have gone with the CEP funding model, that would have been a projection of the reduction in funding we would have received for our programs. On the right-hand side, you'll see with the blue header this year's projection, or the projection for going into 23-24. And if you take your eyes down to the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a negative $78,636.12.
So, we'll wait till the end.
So the second bullet point, yes, the second bullet point I'll start with. The biggest why on this one is because last year's free rate that we would have been able to, last year's percentage of free meals we would have been able to claim was 74.2. This year's is 83.9. That's the biggest reason for the difference, because of the jump in the percentage of students that have qualified for free, are directly certified for free meals. That changes all of the equations. That's the difference. And that was the reason that it didn't make sense to make that decision last year going into this school year. So CEP has a funding cycle, a 3-year funding cycle. You set a base year, which would be, if this is approved, would be the 23-24 school year. And that 83.9% is a baseline. Next year we reassess our numbers. If that free percentage falls lower than 83.9, we stay. If it goes higher, so that we could claim more at the free rate, we could choose to go up or we can choose to stay. Year 3, same thing. We will never fall below the 83.9%. In year 4, you have to start over again, look at your numbers, and begin the cycle again. One of the financial, just mentioning breakfast for a minute, this funding does impact the breakfast reimbursement as well, the same way. The projected difference in breakfast reimbursement by moving to CEP at this point in time would be an additional $120,000. And these numbers, it's important that I share with you, these numbers and the projections all assume that we don't have any increase in our meal participation at all. So that the numbers that we served this year are the exact same numbers that we served last year. Prior to COVID, we had grown slightly. If you could see the trajectory, it was slow, and then we pretty much flatlined. We were really close to the same participation year after year after year. Between last year and this year, going back to the National School Lunch Program, traditional model of funding, we've dropped 15% in lunch participation and 8% in breakfast participation. So I didn't want to inflate numbers or give any kind of estimates that I have no idea where we'll go, but I have a hard time believing that we wouldn't increase some amount of a percentage, but all of our numbers are based on zero increase. So that's all I have for you. What questions do you have?
Questions, Dr. Condon? I know you're waiting a bit here.
So, a couple of questions.
Yes.
Are there different food requirements under the National School Lunch Program and under the Community Eligibility Provision?
No, great question. It's all still under the National School Lunch Program. For purposes of clarification, I did use the 2 different acronyms to explain the funding, but all of the meal requirements,
So the requirements
all of the
are all still the
nutritionals,
same.
everything to do with the food itself is all the same. It's
Okay.
exactly the same.
All right, because some of the things that we hear are about the menu and the items and stuff like that, so I was just curious. The other is, when you're saying that last year's free paid percentage was 74.2%, so is that the equivalent of our free and reduced lunch rate?
That was our directly certified free and reduced rate with the 1.6 multiplier.
Okay.
So it is confusing because when we typically look at free and reduced rates, we don't add in any multipliers. It's just a raw number, It's raw data. For purposes of funding in the CEP program, you multiply your raw data times 1.6.
So what's the 28.5%?
Is it right? I'm sorry, let me go back.
Well, that's the leftover of the.
So that every other meal that we serve, we would be able to claim for reimbursement, but only at the paid rate, which is the 87 cents.
Okay.
So this, essentially the CEP model, it gets rid of that reduced column in the middle, and you've got your percentage of meals you can claim at the free rate and your percentage of meals you can claim at the paid rate.
So is it saying that we would be able to claim, so this past year we claimed 74%?
If we would have gone CEP, we would have been able, yes, we would have been able to claim 74 point.
Okay, and so
yes.
next year you're saying it's 83.9,
Yes.
almost 90% we'd be able to claim?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the biggest reason for the change in the numbers that you're seeing, is that percentage increase. It's significant.
So let's just say we have 100 students. Are you saying that 83.9% of them we would be reimbursed on, or is it 1.6 of the 83.9?
If 100 students
Does that make sense?
If 100 students came through the line, 83.9% of them, we would receive funding at the free at $4.43 per meal. Everybody else, we would receive 87 cents per meal.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Where's the 1.6 come?
The 1.6 is the multiplier that that USDA allow. I don't know. It's part of the program and the funding, and that's how they tell us to figure out.
Okay.
If we don't know that I'm free and Emily's reduced, that's how we figure out how to claim reimbursement for a community of meals rather than individual meals.
Got it. Okay.
Other questions, anybody?
Can I make a comment? Great work. I mean, the analytics you apply every single year is critically important. But at the end of the day, what does this mean for any kid who goes through the lunch line now?
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about lunch money.
Nope, it's still.
They don't have to worry about lunch money.
breakfast and lunch.
It's covered.
Has added.
That's awesome.
So wait a minute, let me make sure I'm understanding.
Everybody eats free.
Can't believe
So
she didn't miss
every
that.
kid is, so every kid in Flagler County would get free lunch?
Yes, and breakfast if they choose.
Breakfast has been for a number of years. We have not charged any, we've still had individual eligibility, but we have not charged a local amount for the students who are reduced price or full pay. So breakfast has always been at no charge, but lunch has not, other than the crazy COVID years where we had other.
So does this get us back to that kind of formula that we were doing in COVID?
It's different, but it's.
Then basically,
it'll look
to the
same.
family, it's gonna be the
To the families,
same.
it'll look the same. To the families, it'll look the same.
They have food.
Wow.
Thank you
To
for
those of
pointing
us
that out.
doing math, it doesn't look the same, but it's okay. It's all right. We got this. We got this.
Wow.
All right.
Very good.
Anybody?
It's awesome.
No, it's good. Thank you very much.
Awesome news for our family.
Thank you.
All right, we're going down to human resources, and we need Bob Willett because there's a lot of job descriptions to review.
Yes, ma'am. Superintendent Massaro, board members, excuse me, Chairman Massaro. Hang on titles here.
Yeah, I don't want you superintendent. Thanks.
I apologize. Yes, I have several job descriptions before you. It's that time of year as one of the unique pieces of, school districts is our jobs have beginnings, middles, and ends. And as we transition to head into the next school year and the staffing occurs and we staff up folks, the first two, math and science coach and literacy coach, are an extension of what we brought forward as far as our chance to get more specific in the teacher on assignment position. The teacher on assignment position was a catch-all generalist position that was used for deans and behavior interventionists, and so it was also used for content specialists. Like I could be a math coach, could be a science coach. We give people these titles, but it wasn't codified in their job descriptions. So this is the chance to go ahead, and they're still in the teacher on assignment bargaining lane within instructional, but it is a deeper dive into the fact that they will be the content specialists at the school, assisting the teachers with math and science, or literacy, or behavior, for the behavior interventionists. So that's those two job descriptions.
All right, do we have any questions on those two?
The head custodian comes out of changes that were being made within custodial services. Currently, schools have a crew of custodians with a lead custodian who's inside the bargaining group and assists with supervision duties but does not evaluate. And then there was a coordinator above that was at different schools and did not have that also evaluated. This is the chance to go ahead and bring that head custodian position at the school level to make a supervisor that also at the school level has evaluative duties instead of having to report up a level. It's site-based management.
Okay. Does that salary lane change then?
The salary lane,
For which one? For which one?
For the,
yes,
custodian.
because
Head custodian.
yes, it does come.
Hasn't changed because now they're supervisors.
Yes, ma'am.
Got
It comes out of the bargaining unit and goes into the supervisor.
Okay, good.
The next two descriptions are human resources and benefits and payroll supervisor. That really, originally the job description was human resources and payroll. Human resources as a department, as the school district expands and grows and changes, the actual department itself was very flat. Okay, and when I say that, I mean it had a chief or a director, whatever had been called in the past, and then basically one supervisor, which had been that position bundled together as far as payroll and HR. When the year began and payroll actually moved upstairs to finance, that catch-all supervisor moved upstairs and kept actually HR even flatter, as far as everybody was a direct report to the director or the chief. So what this does is it splits that job description and allows payroll to become purely payroll, and the HR pieces that were in that supervisor spot to come back down and allow us to capture an HR supervisor to put at least an entry-level supervisor position to assist with day-to-day operations of the hiring pipeline and data mining and public records requests and the myriad of things that we do on a day-to-day.
Any questions, comments?
And the last one is a fix that my former position, professional standards coordinator, did not have a pay lane attached to the bottom of the job description. And so in preparation for bringing in my replacement to that position, we took a look at it and found it needed a pay lane, or the pay lane.
And this is about, how did you figure where to place that payment?
Well, I mean, it falls right in line with, if you look at the coordinators on, in that lane.
Any other questions? I think we're good, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Keep going, everybody will be fast. All right. We're going on to number 20, School Board Attorney Action 2001. Request approval for the renewal of the 2023-2024 NEPEC agreement. Ms. Lomax and Ms. Gavin. It's just Gavin.
It's just me.
Okay, well, I'm reading what it says.
I get to be the bearer of the wonderful news.
All right, that's fine.
All right.
I was gonna get excited. I thought it was going down. It's not. It's going up.
Well, some areas went down, some areas did not. So, Chair Massaro, board members, this is a renewal of our contract that we have with NEPEC. It is broken into the various services that we receive through NEPEC. So the main contract, which provides us our services, it has gone down from the $33,005.20 to this year it will be $32,906.40. The instructional services program, and then under the main contract you have the legislative network program. That has not changed. That stayed at $3,500. Also a part of the main contract was the indirect services. That dollar amount went from $2,056.80 to $2,194. Your instructional services portion of the contract previously was $62,638. That has gone down to $62,062. For the enterprise resource software, that's our Skyward Technology licensing fee. That amount has gone down from $460,134 last year to $413,552. The Skyward licensing annual fee has gone up from $177.43 to $182,173. Finally, the biggest part of the increase is under risk management, and the biggest part of the increase is our property insurance coverage. It is an increase of about $500,000. I have good news for you. So, not great news, but the $2,613,075 that was signed by Putnam County as being our portion of the property casualty. So this doesn't just include property, it's also our cybersecurity, it's all of our different pieces of coverage. Our liability coverage is all of our coverage, but the biggest part of that coverage had a $500,000 increase. They were able to negotiate it down, and what our portion is a reduction of $102,482. So instead of the $2,613,755, which is for all of our coverage pieces, it's now $2,511,273.56. So it turns out to be a $613,646 increase on our coverage piece. We were able to preserve our deductible of $50 million. They were not going to insure us for that. It was pretty hard for us to keep that in. We were able to get that to be maintained, and we were able to get it to come down a little bit more. So the increase it was a 42% increase. It's now 32.16, our percentage increase to the district for this. Part of the other reason of why our insurance went up is, quite frankly, when we were going to market on our property coverage, we did not have the current actual, if we went to rebuild, and you've probably seen that a lot of insurance companies are pulling out of the state of Florida, not willing to insure real property. Well, we were using our rates, and it was not based on the current property value. So we had, in effect, all of the properties were revalued and reassessed so that we were able to say when we went to market that yes, if you insure us and if there is a loss, the coverage that we are paying for is actual true to the cost to rebuild. And so that was a big piece to why this went up so much, is because we had two corrections. Part of the correction is due to all of the hurricane damage that we have seen throughout, but the other part was because our property values were not at current market rates.
Now they are.
And now they are. So there was two adjustments that caused that high increase. Document archiving went up by $100, and I leave it at that. So that is what you will be approving. There will be a change, obviously, to this front cover page. It will reflect the reduction in the risk management part of the contract, and also the attachment to the risk management piece, which shows Flagler County School District's portion. That will also be a change. So it's the attachment to that part of the contract will be a change as well. So when you have it at your meeting in June, your business meeting, it will reflect those changes.
Dr. Conlon. Chrissy, I think I've asked this before, but is any of this a la carte, or do you have to take it all?
It has to be all. We have requested that, and it is an all or nothing piece.
Have we ever checked with FSBIT to see what risk management
we have, and quite frankly,
it doesn't come close.
It's right now everybody's rates are
because they were very responsive to a number of counties. I know specifically Collier County couldn't speak more highly of them after the last hurricane. But if you can't piecemeal it,
no, you can't.
Help us. And it's always a huge contract.
I hate this contract.
I know you do. Every time.
The only thing I can say that we are doing better at, if you want a silver lining, I don't know if you do, but our workers' comp, our mod index, we have done so much better.
Yes. That's good.
We've been very diligent, very responsive, making sure that our employees, when they're injured, if we can get them back to work, we're getting them back to work earlier. We are making sure that their needs are being met, and so when we have had situations arise where we are concerned that medical providers aren't the right medical providers, we've been stopping them and making sure that.
And I want to be clear in my comments. I don't hate NEFAC. I just hate the cost of this contract.
Trust me.
I love working with our partners at NEFAC.
Yes.
It's just
And
frustrating
it's
every
good to
time I
have
look
a
at this
group,
contract
so
because it's such a large amount.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to tell you. When the school districts that are a part of NEFAC had to vote on the risk management piece, the motion was begrudgingly removed to accept the cost.
Because you still have to.
Because we have to.
We have to do
We
it.
have to.
And, you know,
Don't
it's
care.
fair, so.
Well, we do. We have to do it. We have no choice. If we went any other way, it'd be costing a lot more. So. Any other comments or questions? Thank you for the wonderful news.
Well, like I said, it's 102,000 lower.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
We have to look at something, right?
Yes, cheaper's cheaper.
All right. We are going on to old business. Old business 21. Anybody have old business?
I was wondering if we could look at our policy for public comments, maybe just tightening that up a little bit.
All right, so we have a policy. Do we want any consensus to do that? Public comment? To review our public comment? We just did it last year, I thought.
Sure.
One, we need another one.
I'm always in favor of reviewing policy.
Okay, so then we'll take a look at the public future. We'll get that, we'll look at that.
We have a policy?
Yeah, we do. It's
Is
in
it,
our-
or is it the procedure manual?
It's in the back, it's in,
Or procedure.
yeah.
Do you, so board procedure is what we're gonna look at, okay.
Okay, yeah, we'll work on that. All right, anybody else? Old business? I have old business and has to deal with safety at these meetings. We had discussed, we had a concern from one of our board members that they did not feel safe here. And so we, at that time, I offered the possibility of having law enforcement attend. And I think we got the cost is approximately $250 roughly a meeting, depending on the rank of the officers that pick up the extra duty. The higher the officer, the more money you pay, because that's how that works. For 3 hours. Over 3 hours is additional time. That's one of the options for 2 meetings a month. Okay? Another option that I would recommend, well, I don't like recommend, but another option that I came up with is one that you can consider is moving our seats around up here. If being closer to an exit would make our board members feel more comfortable, we can flip it. So that's, and I was just trying to pick things out of my mind. I don't know if anybody else has any other
So
recommendations.
move the whole table this way?
No,
so
leave the
that's-
table as it is, but move these people and ourselves down that way, and we'll put Will down here, and it'll work that way. So you're, can we get closer, we can put Sally down here too. However, whatever is another option. So I think we need to have some conversation on that topic.
Okay.
See where, if you have another suggestion, I'm all ears. Anybody?
Well, I mean, I can sit anywhere, if that helps somebody, I'm totally fine with that. You know, we want everybody to feel safe and secure. I mean, that's an important thing. So that would be to have a officer at both workshops.
Correct.
Because we already have
Correct.
it set up for the business meeting.
So $500 a month. $500
Is
a
it
month.
$250 an hour?
No,
or
it's $250 for
the
3 hours.
3 hours.
Mhm.
It's $250 for 3 hours.
Are we making a decision right now or just?
No,
we're
we're
just
discussing,
looking
we're
for
discussing.
Other ideas or?
That's why I said I'm open to other suggestions, because I wanted to find, I had to talk to Tommy to find out what would be the cost, so we know what we're looking at, to be fair, to have an officer sit here.
If we did it downstairs, staff would have to move tables down on the floor area, right?
Well, I don't think there'd be room for staff on the floor area with the way the seating arrangement is.
Yeah.
That would
I
not work.
definitely think this environment is better for workshop
Correct.
discussion, but
Yeah.
at the same time, you know, we need to make it work. So.
What if we did turn the tables this way, so that the door was right there? Do you know what I'm saying?
If we just flip
Well,
the
one
room.
thing to consider also is we are gonna have also secure doors here too, right? Or those will be open when we're having.
We have meetings
Yeah,
that have to be open.
That will be open, yeah.
Yeah, so that won't help. Right.
I don't know if seating matters if I'm being shot at, I mean, you know.
Well, I mean, this is part of the conversation.
I actually don't agree with, those doors are very necessary to protect our staff. So I don't like, Superintendent Middlestat, I don't know if you can weigh in on this. Those doors that are going to be installed are necessary. I don't know that I like the idea of during the hours when we are in session, that those have to be propped open. That is an entire window several times a month where your district staff would not be as safe as they could be. So when those doors are installed, I recommend that you all have a different meeting place other than here so that the whole benefit of those are realized. But you know the plans a lot better than I do about where those doors will be installed.
Can they just be monitored to let people in?
Well, somebody would have to be out there.
Is it?
Is there gonna be a check-in system with those doors?
I'm gonna ask Dave to kind of step
Dave.
forward, because there's some layers of.
Because I'm wondering if there's a monitoring system.
It's like the counties, I believe, on the other side. Phone number.
Right,
So-
right.
So we have these doors here that will be installed, and we'll have the Salto lock system on there, which is what we're currently using in the district, where you either have a card or you can schedule it to have it open. We are also putting that system on our suite doors too. So if this is open, then our suite doors will be locked. So the staff behind the suite doors would have that protection as well. And it would go all the way down to the second floor and then all the way to the first floor as well. So each of the suite doors.
Is there going to be a buzzer system or something?
Phone like they have
That where they'll be allowed, people
There's,
will be.
there was a
admitted
team
in?
from Dave's team, or from Corey's team, and my team that had worked through that with the vendor, as well as the contractor on the equipment that was identified, and how that would work. So yes, folks will have at the reception the ability to buzz people in, so to speak.
Much like what the county has put up.
Right.
over here.
How do you suggest we handle
Public
meetings like this?
Well, I think kind of what Dave was saying, the suite doors on this floor would then be locked during those times.
So if we leave the door open,
So if
they
this
can't get
door
in
is
anywhere
open, the
else.
suite door
Yeah, I
at
got
the
you.
superintendent's suite,
I got you.
yeah,
I
the
got you.
teaching and learning.
So then
suite.
they just can't get in anywhere else. So we could prop that open and maintain safety within our staff.
Or, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, maybe have somebody post it there and have
Yeah.
people sign in and.
That's what I'm wondering. I wonder
at
if there's
that
a
door,
process that you
Yeah, we
can.
gotta come up with something. So that's something we all need to consider. But getting back to what do we wanna do here is the issue.
Well, is it any savings with a private security guard
I don't know.
versus, an officer? I don't know if it's the same or if it's.
I don't know. That's a good question. I really don't know. It's something we can ask Tommy to investigate.
Just to see all options,
Yeah, that's something I can ask him to investigate, and then we'll continue to have the conversation. Because, I mean, think about it, I was thinking about it, anything we can do to make everybody comfortable. I think it's what we're
Well, I
trying to
know,
do.
I mean, I think of that crazy meeting that we had last fall. That was not,
Downstairs.
yeah, I mean,
That was nice.
a room full of guys in military gear. So I get it. What about that room in the back downstairs that's open? You can open the walls and it's a room just as big as this, but you could literally.
Half of the board chambers.
Right.
It's the first part of the board chambers you partition off. I don't know if you have the technical
It'd be
ability
big
to
enough.
live
That
stream.
big.
Not big enough.
Significantly smaller than this.
It's like half the size of it.
This
I'm just,
table would
I'm just
struggle to fit
spitballing
in there
ideas.
without a door.
Right, right.
It's not
Done
big
a
enough.
handful of
I've been in
meetings
there.
in there.
Right. That's not big enough.
It's like a committee size meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are the things that we do. I will ask Mr. Willingham to figure out about the private security. It's good. We'll check. I don't know. So we'll see if we can find that out. and then see where we go from there. Okay?
Okay.
And then we'll have more, think about it, because if it's a concern for one, then it should be something we need to work with and figure out. There's more people we can do it. Okay? That's what I had under old business. Anybody else, anything else under old business? Thank you, gentlemen. Old business? All right, new business. Anybody have anything for new business?
I do.
Yes, go ahead, Kristen.
So I had a wonderful sit down with the Flagler Ed Foundation and just some things we talked about, maybe giving them a spotlight during our meetings. It doesn't have to be every meeting, maybe a quarterly or every 6 months.
Okay, I had the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that after speaking with the board, that we could, and I wanted to ask if we can agree on this, that we would add a spotlight at every one of our evening meetings. So it's 3 to 5 minute tops, just to highlight their events and their activities, because after all, they're fundraising for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask if we had a consensus to go ahead to do that. So
If
we're
they
on the same
want to have
page.
it every meeting?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I was gonna say, could we?
Or make it
maybe-
available,
No,
if they have something to
evening,
say.
yeah, because they generally have a lot of things going on through the year.
Yeah.
That a lot of people don't know about, and that's televised, well, they're all televised, but, I mean, that's probably the most highly watched meeting that we have. So they can at least advertise what the things that they have done, or the activities they've supported, because they do that a lot too.
I'd say like a placeholder, and if they don't
Yeah,
need
in
it,
the
we
spotlight.
just take it out.
Yeah, in the spotlight section.
Okay.
So
That's what I agree.
Could we possibly think about maybe considering having a spotlight area, whether it's the Ed Foundation quarterly or every other month or something, but like I'd love to have the African American Mentor Program have a spotlight to
Well, they
share
can.
who they are, and
Yeah.
I think each
all
of
they
us
to
have
do is-
groups that we would maybe like to spotlight, so
Well,
maybe
they
we
can,
can
all they have to do
rotate
is
that.
ask us.
Yeah.
Yeah, all they have to do in that case is ask us, but I would just make that standardized in our agenda. Therefore, if they have something, they'll share it. If they don't, we don't have a spotlight for that month. Is that am I getting a consensus of 3?
Yes.
It doesn't matter to me, I
Consensus,
mean, the more information,
Okay, so
the
that's
better.
yes, then that's a yes. We can go on and add that to the agenda. For next month's meeting, not, it'll start in July. Yep, start in July, okay. That's all that I had. Anybody else?
Nothing.
Okay, we've gone to public comment. Do we have public comment?
No.
All right.
Oh, no, we do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We do have a public comment.
We do.
I signed up, don't know what happened.
You did,
Oh.
but it popped after.
Oh, okay.
It's fine.
Well, thank you, Chair. I really have more questions than comment, and I would respectfully ask that my answers be posted, whether it's on board docs or somewhere, since it's related to this. And as you can tell, I've just been scribbling and I've been texting myself some questions, and so I wouldn't forget, but there's just a lot in reference to the Flagler Youth Orchestra. So it's my understanding that the Flagler County School Board has allowed 2 individuals, namely Cheryl Tristram and Pierre Tristram, to be signers on a Flagler County Schools bank account, and neither one of them are Flagler County Schools employees. One is a 1099 employee, supposedly a contractor, and no one knew about it all these years, and they've been allowed to operate this account without oversight of anything, and we're gonna slough this off as we did a bad thing. I'm just really confused about that. So, have some questions. Do the deposits show cash donations? I would like that answer. Was there anyone paid out of the account from Flagler Schools that maybe need a 1099? That's a legitimate question, because Flagler Schools 1099 all these people in the orchestra. So did they pay someone out of there that need a 1099? For clarification, it was stated that no one at this table presently had knowledge of this account, but it appears for some reason that Ms. Conklin and Ms. Gavin have some more knowledge than the rest of you, because they're on the defensive of that. And considering, I think, Ms. Conklin, you've been here as long as the youth orchestra has been, and you've been here, Ms. Gavin, not that long after.
Longer.
Or longer, that's a little something. The school district is screwed up. That was a comment that was made. I didn't make that comment, Colin Conklin made that. And which internal accounts, I wanna know which internal accounts do Flagler County Schools have that have, where the signers are not employees of Flagler County Schools? I mean, that's just a question, that's crazy. Which bank accounts open today have signers that are not Flagler County School employees. The Flagler Youth Orchestra, the name Flagler Youth Orchestra and the name Friends of Flagler Youth Orchestra do not exist on sunbiz.org. It is not an organization that exists. And I understand that there was a comment made that it's a special project. What does it qualify to do to get a special project? Also, Ms. Gavin, you have been writing these memorandum of understandings to this special project organization. Do you even review half the stuff that you write? Do you check to see if it's a valid organization or you have to be a special project? Pierre Tristan, in his own words, said something along the lines, let me get this right, in an article that Flagler County Schools underwrites the Flagler Youth Orchestra. Which is it? Is it a special project or do you underwrite the Flagler County Youth Orchestra? Ms. Tristan has been given free decision making. I can send you that article. And in terms of how these monies are spent, everything, spending Flagler County Schools funds. When you go to the website, Flagler Youth Orchestra, there's only one comment in there that says that they are a special project. To me, and my daughter was in Flagler Youth Orchestra, and to the rest of the world, Flagler Youth Orchestra operates and act like they are their own separate entity. Who's been paying taxes on this? What qualifies for all of that? I mean, I have so many questions. The account was opened up by a superintendent. Now, you know, it would think to me, I'm not a smart person, not as smart as all of you here, but I know Cheryl and Pierre are very smart people. Why hasn't another superintendent throughout the years been placed on this account?
I have to stop you.
Oh, I'm done? Oh, I'm sorry.
There was a lot, and here's what I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
And we're not going to write down the questions, but I know Patty was over there writing them down, Ms.
Yes.
Wormack, and she will give you the responses to the questions that she has.
Okay. Thank you
In
kindly.
a reasonable time. Okay?
I appreciate that.
Got it.
Okay. And then can I get a special project where my husband's on the account? With the Flagler County School EIN?
All right, is anybody else, do we have any more public comment?
No, there is no more public comment.
There is no more public comment. Closing comments. Board members, any closing comments?
I just want to thank all those who came today to comment and share with us. We always welcome that. And just want to hope all of our teachers, parents, and students are having a wonderful summer vacation. And same to all of you.
Ms. Chong, anything?
I'll just say happy summer. I hope everybody gets some time to rest and enjoy their families.
Ms. Hunt?
I have no comment.
No comment. Ms. Gunn?
I guess I'll just comment on the Flagler Youth Orchestra since I was the longest one here. I remember the creation of this special project that the superintendent committed to underwrite and support at that time. I always just assumed that it was audited, and there wasn't an audit exception. I'm curious to see how this all unfolds. I certainly don't think anything inappropriate has gone on. I think it's provided a tremendous opportunity for our students, and a unique one, and thousands of students have participated. So I'm anxious for the audit to be completed. I think that everyone should just kind of suspend judgment until we have all of the information. Now that we know, we know. So moving forward, we have to put the right procedures in place. But yeah, everybody thinks that a school board member knows exactly every single thing that happens. That is not the case. You believe that certain policies and procedures are happening, and it's almost impossible to ensure that every single, if you look at just look at the audit reports that you've received currently since you've been on the board. You have to take the word of staff that those things are being done. I appreciate, Will, that you asked for the audit because I think now we're going to get it. And we wouldn't have known, staff wouldn't have known. It was a Flagler County account. I've said it was a Flagler County account all along. So I hope when we have the conversation, we can invite Bill Delbruck to the table to share how this kind of started and maybe share a little bit more of a perspective of the CFO at the time and the starting of the account, and maybe answer any questions that anybody else has. But I'm proud of the Flagler Youth Orchestra. I'm proud of the service that it's provided to our students, the opportunity it's given our children, and I know that this is the life work of Cheryl Tristan, and it's sad because I really think that this is more about Pierre Tristan than about Cheryl Tristan. And I just hope that we can move beyond this to make sure that students still have access to a program like the Flagler Youth Orchestra. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I just want to thank everybody for today's meeting. I think we accomplished a great deal. All of our staff who contributed and our visitors who had things to say. And we'll see everybody in 2 weeks, and I'm closing today's meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.